in one piece, building the strongest naval base. Hello again, dear adventurers of the multiverse. Thanks for joining us once more on this epic journey. Remember, this story is pure science fiction from our wild imagination. So don't go trying to summon dragons in your backyard. The rights of this amazing novel belong entirely to its original author. We are only the narrators. Do you want more adventures? Show some love to our YouTube channel with a subscription and a like. And if you want exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting for you with open arms. Chapter 76 Operational Arrangements. While Drake agreed with Lian's closing the door to trap the dog's approach, he needed to consider the specific arrangements. After all, if the plan wasn't well thought out, they might end up being trapped instead. Another major problem was how to trick the pirates into storming into the G8 branch without attacking the outer walls. They couldn't just leave the G8 branch wide open, waiting for so many pirate crews to approach. That would be like telling them they were being tricked. Now, I'll assign the specific tasks. Major Drake, tomorrow evening after 7 p.m., you will command a small warship to depart from the G8 branch and conduct patrols in the surrounding waters. The patrol area will be the area where those pirates are gathered. Colonel Lian, what does this mean? Drake was completely bewildered. Over 20 pirate crews were there. He was being sent with a small warship and a few dozen marines. Your mission is simple: deliberately let the pirates spot you, then turn and run. However, during the escape, I need you to control your speed carefully and make sure you don't leave the pirates too far behind. After giving the order, seeing Drake about to say something, Li Yan gestured to stop him, then looked at Momousaji. Vice Admiral Momousaji, I need you to lead a group of Marines in ambush at the fortress gate. Once you see Major Drake's warship escape into the branch, immediately activate the mechanism to close the fortress gate, but you must control the closing speed carefully. Make sure the pirates follow Major Drake into the branch before the gate is completely closed. And, after the entire pirate crew has entered the branch, prevent them from turning around and bombarding the gate. As for the rest of the men, I'll make arrangements after I check the locations of all the defensive facilities at the G8 branch. Hiss. Hearing this, Drake finally understood what Lian was up to. This plan is brilliant. First, a small warship will feign patrol, then be discovered by the pirate crews, who, realizing the vast difference in strength, will turn and flee. The key is to cleverly control the speed during this escape, leaving the pirate crews trailing behind, making them believe they can rush in with the warship before the fortress gates close. Finally, Vice Admiral Momousaji will guard the gates to prevent the pirates from turning around and bombarding them to escape. If this plan succeeds, the pirate ships rushing in will face a barrage of gunfire from the G8 branch, and if Vice Admiral Momousaji can handle a few of the more troublesome ones, the entire battle will be a foregone conclusion. Any questions? No questions. Alright, let's get moving. Also, Major Drake, could you please provide me with a defensive layout map of the G8 branch? Yes, Colonel. The next day, 7 p.m. The gates of the G8 branch suddenly opened, and a small warship, led by Drake and more than 20 Marines, sailed out to begin its patrol mission. At the same time, about 20 nautical miles east of the branch, a total of 27 pirate ships had gathered. The captains of these 27 pirate crews had all arrived on the Talus pirate's ship. Boss Talus, wasn't it said that Vincent was coming too, and that he would bring several pirate crews with him? I don't know, I can't contact him right now. Could something have happened to him? It's alright. I've arranged for people to disguise themselves and monitor several marine branches within 300 nautical miles, as well as marine headquarters. So far, there hasn't been any movement of the Marines. Even if Vincent really has an accident and confesses, the Marines won't be able to get here in time. Talus shook his head and said. In fact, Talus had planned this operation for a long time, even arranging for more than 30 subordinates to disguise themselves and monitor all marine branches within a 500 nautical mile radius. Some of them disguised themselves as civilians on the island, some as fishermen, and even some as merchants, etc. In short, Taros would immediately receive news of any large-scale naval mobilization by surrounding branches and naval departments. And just an hour ago, according to the latest report, the Navy still showed no signs of unusual activity. Therefore, he didn't care whether Vincent was in trouble or not, it was just a matter of burning down one participating pirate crew. Boss Taros is indeed cautious. When do we move? No rush, let's wait until it's a little darker. Taros said, looking at the sky, which wasn't completely dark yet. "Boss." Just then, a pirate rushed into the cabin where the pirate crews were talking on the ship. "What is it?" The brother monitoring the G8 branch reported that a small warship has sailed out of the branch. "Judging from their direction, we're very likely to be discovered." "A small warship, is it on patrol?" Hearing this, Taros frowned slightly. "If this gets discovered, it'll be a real problem." Although Taros is still confident he can take down the G8 branch, raiding an unsuspecting branch is completely different from forcibly attacking a fortified naval branch. After all, the G8 branch is built like a fortress. Even with a small number of naval personnel, its powerful defenses mean that a direct assault would result in heavy casualties. "Wait a minute, maybe we can use this to our advantage. Perhaps we can storm into the G8 branch without firing a shot." "Captain Taros, what do we do now? Go straight up and take down this warship?" Upon hearing the report from Taros' subordinates, a pirate captain hurriedly asked. "No, Navy warships usually have den mushy, snail phone, on board. Unless you can kill everyone on board in one hit, they'll have enough time to contact the 18th branch to warn us. By then, if we try to attack again, we'll face the Navy's full-scale defense, which will result in heavy casualties. Therefore, we should use this patrolling warship." The other pirate captains were all stunned upon hearing this. After all, they were just pirates. While they were indeed skilled in close-quarters combat, they were complete novices when it came to large-scale naval battles and overall tactical planning, except for Talus, who had been constantly fighting the Navy. "Captain Talus, just tell us what to do." "All right, we'll take the initiative and attack that warship, but remember, don't get too close for melee combat, and don't sink the warship. Have the gunners deliberately miss their shots. From the Navy's perspective, we pirates aren't professionally trained, so it's normal for our shots to be off target. Why? It's simple. I'll just stay close behind the warship, and with so many pirate crews chasing it, it'll inevitably flee back to the G8 branch. The fortress gate at the G8 branch takes at least a minute to close, so we can just follow the warship and rush in before the gate closes." Wow. A great idea. No wonder he's Captain Talus, who frequently fights the Navy. After hearing Talus's plan, the pirate captains were all amazed by its brilliance. However, they didn't know that Lian had already arranged the stage, just waiting for them, the actors, to take the stage. Chapter 77: Luring the Enemy Deep, Closing the Door to Beat the Dog. On the Grand Line, more than 10 nautical miles east of the Navy's G8 branch. Lieutenant Commander Drake, we've spotted a large pirate fleet ahead, a whopping 27 ships. They're here after all. Tell everyone to act a bit panicked. Yes, Lieutenant Commander. Drake didn't immediately order a turn and flee. He remembered what Lian had told him before they set off. If you run away as soon as you spot the pirates, no matter how well you pretend, those pirate ships won't be able to catch you, the distance is too great. So, you need to charge forward as if you're capturing pirates, then find a suitable opportunity to pretend to escape. Don't worry, they'll cooperate with your act. Although he didn't understand what Lian meant by the pirates cooperating, Drake understood that if he ran without getting closer, the distance would be too great for them to catch up, and anything further would be pointless. Therefore, he had to get closer. "Major, something's strange." "What is it?" "Several enemy pirate ships aren't flying their flags, making it impossible to identify which pirate crew they belong to. Furthermore, we haven't been able to confirm the major pirate groups mentioned in the intelligence, like the Talus pirates." Taking the binoculars from the captain, Drake observed. Sure enough, besides the Talus pirates, the other pirate crews with captains boasting bounties close to 100 million were also unidentifiable, and the number of these crews was exactly the same as the number of ships not flying their flags. So that's how it is. At this moment, Drake understood what Lian meant when he said the enemy would cooperate with their exercises. It seems that Talus is afraid of scaring us away. In that case, we'll play along. Order all gunners to prepare for attack and await my command. Yes, Major. As time passed, the distance between the two sides continued to close. 5 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 1 kilometer. Finally, the distance was reduced to within the Navy's standard engagement range. After all, the pirate world was still in the age of sailing ships, and the naval cannons used were only muzzle-loading smoothbore cannons. Although their maximum range exceeded 2 kilometers, they were basically inaccurate beyond 1 kilometer. Therefore, the Navy's rules of engagement at sea stipulated that the maximum engagement distance was only 1 kilometer, and the optimal engagement distance was only 300 meters. And this was the Navy. The naval cannons used by pirates were mostly inferior to those of the Navy. Fire. Boom boom boom. Speaking of which, this was a warship on the Grand Line, with better equipment than those in the East Blue, but it only had 3 cannons, and they weren't even dedicated naval cannons, but rather ordinary cannons that could be pushed around. Similar to the cannon used by the buggy pirates. At this moment, under Drake's command, the 3 cannons, which had already been pushed to the bow deck, roared. However, these ordinary cannons posed no threat to most pirates on the Grand Line. Before the cannonballs even landed on the pirate ships, 3 black streaks flashed past, intercepting all the cannonballs. However, this wasn't important. For Drake, it was simply a matter of putting on a show and waiting for the opportunity Li Yan had mentioned. Major, those pirate ships have raised their pirate flags. It's the Talus pirates, along with the Red Sand pirates, the Osiri pirates, and the Sasser pirates. All pirate crews with captains boasting bounties of over 80 million. The captain, observing through binoculars, suddenly saw something, his expression changing drastically as he loudly reported. Is this the opportunity Colonel Li Yan was talking about? Helmsman, turn the ship around and retreat immediately. Everyone else, act like you're in a panic. Yes, Major. Soon, just as the warship turned around, the pirates began their bombardment, but it seemed to miss. 27 pirate ships, hundreds of cannons firing simultaneously, failed to land a single near miss. Even the closest impact point was over 150 meters from the warship. At a distance of approximately 500 meters, with over 100 shells fired, even the best aim was off by more than 150 meters. This wasn't just bad acting, it was clearly an over-the-top performance. Seeing this, Drake felt reassured. He directed the warship to retreat towards the G8 branch while urging the Marines to continue their acting. Finally, at 8:50 p.m., the warship was less than a kilometer from the G8 fortress, and the fortress gates were slowly opening. The fortress gates are open. Quick, send a message to all pirate crews, stop acting. Full speed ahead, keep a close watch on that Navy warship. Yes, sir. A warship, followed by 27 pirate ships, charged towards the G8 branch gates. 2 minutes later, as the warship entered, the Marines at the fortress gates immediately activated the mechanisms, and the gates began to slowly close. However, closing this massive fortress gate completely was no easy task. It would take at least a minute, and with Momausaji's deliberate command of the Marines, it might not be closed even in 2 minutes. Looking at the enormous, incredibly thick gate before him, and its slow closing speed, Taro became excited, shouting repeatedly, "Speed up! Speed up! Speed up!" At that moment, he didn't consider that the massive fortress gate, which could easily be opened even slightly for a small warship to pass through, was being opened completely by the Navy. In just half a minute, the entire pirate ship had surged into the fortress before the gate closed completely. However, things were different from what they had imagined. After passing through the gate, the inner side of the fortress's outer wall was pitch black, without any light, almost impossible to see one's hand in front of one's face. Then, a loud bang came from behind, and the fortress gate had closed completely. It should have taken at least a minute to close at that speed, but it closed in less than half a minute after they rushed into the fortress. Before they could think any further, dozens of high-powered searchlights from all directions shone with blinding light, as if the place they were in was a stage, turning it into daylight. Because of these searchlights, Talus couldn't even see what was happening outside. Talus's heart skipped a beat. Had he fallen into a trap? The next second, as if to confirm Talus's suspicions, countless booming sounds came from all around. Boom 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 boom. Clearly, these were the sounds of cannons, and judging from the sound, they were all large-caliber cannons. Originally, cannons were nothing to pirates of their level. After all, there were many devil fruit users here, and even if some captains did not have devil fruits, they were all masters of physical skills or swordsmanship, and intercepting cannonballs was a piece of cake for them. But when you are simultaneously illuminated by dozens of super-powerful searchlights from all directions, what are you going to do to intercept them? You simply can't see where the cannonballs are, okay? After all, they are pirates from the first half of the Grand Line, and they have not yet mastered observation haki. When their eyes cannot be relied upon, They are no different from blind men. Dozens of cannonballs fell into the pirate fleet. These were not the small cannons on ordinary warships, but real large-caliber fortress cannons, even more powerful than the cannons used on the Buster Call warships. A small ship would be blown to pieces with a single shot. Even large ships couldn't withstand many hits. Wave after wave, until each fortress cannon had fired its basic load, only then did the barrage finally cease. Looking at the area now illuminated by searchlights, aside from a few pirate ships commanded by individuals with special abilities, the rest had been sunk. The large fleet of 27 pirate crews was now reduced to only 7 pirate ships. Chapter 78 The Black Flying Slash. 7 pirate ships, each heavily damaged and with significant crew losses. Of course, while the remaining 20 pirate ships were sunk, many pirates survived. After all, in this pirate world, once one's strength reaches a certain level, they aren't easily killed by cannon fire. The surrounding water was littered with shipwrecks and pirates floating on the debris. It wasn't that Li Yan didn't want to continue bombarding. If he could, he really wanted to fire a few more rounds. The problem was that the artillery technology in this world was simply too poor, especially in terms of cooling. There was almost no auxiliary cooling technology. Therefore, after continuously firing a basic load of shells, the fortress cannons reached their limit and needed to cool down before they could be used again. Not far from the pirate ships, in the pitch-black environment, Li Yan picked up the Den Mushi that had been constantly connected. Shut down the searchlights, turn on the fortress lighting, and enter the second phase of the operation. Yes, Colonel. The next moment, the searchlights went out, and the fortress's regular lighting was turned on. Only then did Taros realize that there was a warship on each side of his fleet, approaching him, less than 300 meters away, and each warship's deck was now filled with Marines, at least 100 in total. Clearly, the Navy intended to engage in close combat again. However, this relieved Taros. If they continued to bombard him like before, even the remaining pirate ships probably wouldn't last long. And close combat? My Taros pirates are the ancestors of your Navy. After all, in Taros' view, the main force of the G8 branch of the Navy had all been summoned to the G1 branch in the New World, and those remaining were basically not powerful. Therefore, taking them out in close combat would be a piece of cake. It's just that those fortress cannons were still a big problem. Siri, Sasser, leave this to us. You two go and seize control of the fortress gate to secure the fleet's retreat. Understood, leave it to us. Hearing Taros' shout, the captains of the other 2 pirate ships immediately responded, indicating they understood. They then ordered their men to turn their ships around and prepare to take over the fortress gate's control room. However, they were unaware that the most powerful force in the entire G8 branch was waiting for them there. Brothers, those weaklings left behind in the G8 branch are coming up to their deaths. Let's show them with our actions that they're all noobs in melee combat. Standing on the deck, Taros shouted at the top of his lungs, and the pirates on the 5 ships roared in response. Even the pirates on other ships in the water swam towards the pirate ships, ready to climb aboard and slaughter a few Marines to get revenge. However, what Taros didn't know was that of the 100+ Marines on those 2 warships, very few were from the G8 branch. Over 90 were from Li Yan's 18th branch, leaving only 9 from the G8 branch. Li Yan had no choice. The main force of the G8 branch had been temporarily drawn away by Akanyu, and as Taros had said, the remaining members were mostly weaklings. Li Yan had to painstakingly select 9 from the weakest among the weak to participate in the second phase of the operation. If it weren't for the need to avoid embarrassing the G8 branch, Li Yan wouldn't have wanted any of them and would have had the 18th branch handle everything. Compared to the Marines he had trained, they were indeed far too weak. Just as the pirates were still howling and waiting for the warships to approach so they could have a good fight, bang 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 bang. A series of gunshots suddenly rang out. Talus suddenly felt something warm splash on his face. After wiping it with his hand, he found it was blood. Only then did he notice that a pirate next to him had been shot on the head. Not only that pirate, but with that burst of gunfire, at least 20 pirates from the 5 pirate ships fell into pools of blood. What a joke. Those 2 warships were still more than 200 meters away. But before he could think any further, something even more terrifying happened. Bang 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 bang. A series of gunshots rang out again, hitting many more pirates. Not only was the range long, but the accuracy was also incredible. Even more terrifying was that this thing seemed to be able to fire continuously. Was it a new type of firearm created by the Navy? This was truly astonishing. Bang 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 bang. Okay, on average, a gunshot rang out every 3 seconds, taking away at least 20 pirates. The pirates, who already numbered only around 300, suffered another loss of over 60 in a short time. Take cover. Everyone take cover. Taros, finally realizing what was happening, shouted frantically, drawing his sword and forcefully swinging it towards Li Yan, who was now dozens of meters away. A black streak flashed past, heading straight for the warship. Another second-stage swordsman, seems even stronger than Vincent. Staring at the black streak hurtling towards them, Li Yan sensed that Taros' swordsmanship was definitely far superior to Vincent's. Moreover, judging from his flying slash, he had clearly mastered the power of his sword energy, achieving complete control. With the methods Li Yan currently possessed, the only way to deal with the flying slash was to take it head-on. After all, this was on a warship. If he dodged, the warship would be doomed, and many of his men might be killed or wounded, a result he didn't want to see. Gripping the lanyard tightly in both hands, Li Yan stared intently at the approaching black streak. A slash for a slash, slash. This wasn't like on Demon Valley Island, where he was caught off guard and hastily reacted, ultimately being blasted away by Vincent's flying slash. With preparation, while he couldn't easily block the slash, he would at least be blasted away. The lanyard was instantly swung down, striking the black streak directly, immediately entering a struggle phase. Li Yan wasn't without sword energy, he just couldn't yet project it outwards. Gritting his teeth, he gripped the lanyard tightly, but still couldn't deflect the slash. Li Yan knew he could only continue to endure, and endure some more, until the sword energy in the slash was further depleted before he could completely neutralize it. A few seconds later, Li Yan let out a low shout, then increased the force in his hand, pushing lanyard back upwards with all his might. Open for me. Suddenly, a low shout came from Li Yan's mouth, and even the deck where Li Yan was standing on the warship was already splitting apart like a spider web, which showed how powerful Talos' flying slash was. Finally, after a few seconds of stalemate and after a lot of the sword energy on the flying slash was consumed, Li Yan seized the opportunity and pushed the slash into the sky with all his might. Ding. Host's swordsmanship proficiency increased by 5%. Ding. Host's swordsmanship level increased by 1. Current level LV, 56, 4%. Ding. Since this is the host's first battle against a pirate with a bounty of over 100 million, the system has issued a special mission. Ding. Special mission, kill or defeat Blood Butcher Talos, and you will receive an achievement gift pack upon completion. Okay, another achievement gift pack. Li Yan loves achievement gift packs the most. This thing always gives a bunch of things. And they are all good things. Chapter 79. A little less battery. Taros was somewhat surprised to see his slash blocked. But it was only a slight surprise. After all, it was just a hasty, impromptu strike, not his full power. However, the fact that someone from the G8 branch could block it still surprised him. Bang 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 bang. Gunfire continued, but because the pirates were now hiding behind the ship's sides or other obstacles, the rifles weren't as effective as before. Finally, close quarters combat began. Men, charge. Remember to capture as many alive as possible. As soon as the ships collided, Taros immediately ordered his men to rush in for melee combat, also instructing them to capture as many prisoners as possible. After all, hostages would deter the Marines from firing. Otherwise, if they killed all the Marines, a subsequent barrage of artillery fire like before wouldn't be pleasant. As for the fact that he only had about 40 pirates left on his ship, while the enemy warship had more than 50, Taros wasn't worried at all. His men could easily handle 2 or even 3 ordinary Marines at once. However, when the two sides clashed, Taros was dumbfounded. This was completely different from what he had expected. Not only were there several skilled Marines among them, but even the ordinary Marines were incredibly powerful, easily capable of taking on 2 or even 3 at once. The 3 strongest among them were all devil fruit users, and there was even a female soldier who could wield lightning. Could it be the legendary Rumble fruit, which hadn't appeared for decades? The entire situation was one-sided. The pirates nearly collapsed after just one encounter. This made Taros lose his composure. He shouted for the other pirate crews to bring their ships closer while leading his officers into battle. After all, he had to stop those 3, otherwise his pirate crew would soon be annihilated. This punch is like taking down a kid. How long can 40-odd pirates last? Taro's and his crew's actions naturally didn't escape Li Yan and his group's notice. Li Yan immediately led Najiko and the others to meet them. At the same time, the Osiri and Sasser pirate crews also brought their ships closer to the fortress gate, now less than 100 meters from the outer wall. Sir, prepare the grappling hooks. Once we're close, take down the fortress gate control room on the outer wall as quickly as possible. Yes, boss. A group of pirates took out their grappling hooks and stood on the decks of their two ships, waiting for them to approach. However, at that moment, both Osiri and Sasser felt a sudden, inexplicable unease. Before they could think further, two pink streaks swept down from the outer wall. Compared to Taro's attack, these two strikes were clearly larger and faster, and seemed to contain something else inexplicable. Where it swept past, even the sea surface was cleaved in two, and for a moment, the seawater couldn't even flow back in. No. Seeing the approaching pink flying slash, Osiri and Sasser could only manage to utter this one word before falling silent. The slash instantly sliced through the two pirate ships, cutting them in two with incredible smoothness. Due to the nature of the slash, most pirates were unharmed, their ships were simply cut in half, and they fell into the water. But Osiri and Sasser were different. After all, Momausaji's slash was aimed directly at them. A Marine Admiral candidate. And a great swordsman standing at the pinnacle of swordsmanship in the pirate world. Even if he had only just entered the realm of great swordsmanship, how could these two pirate crews, who weren't even supernovas, possibly withstand it? Therefore, the fate of these two pirate captains with bounties of over 80 million was predictable. This commotion was so significant that even Taros, who was already confronting Li Yan and the others and preparing to attack, noticed it. As a swordsman, no one understood better than him what those two slashes meant. A great swordsman. This is impossible. It's no wonder Taros thought this way. Not only had the G8 branch not heard of a great swordsman, but the entire Navy had never heard of one. After all, Momausaji had only become a great swordsman a few days ago, and even within the Navy, only a few high-ranking officers knew about it. You, and that great swordsman on the outer wall, aren't from the G8 branch at all. Who are you? Us? We're from a Navy branch in the East Blue. As for the one on the outer wall, she's a candidate for Admiral from the Navy headquarters, Vice Admiral Momausaji. Mamasato. He completely ignored Li Yan's earlier introduction of himself and focused on Momausaji. Damn it, how could a candidate for Admiral be here? And Momausaji hasn't even reached the great swordsman level yet. With her blocking the fortress gate, even if everyone attacked together, they definitely wouldn't be able to break through. By the way, that small warship that encountered a shipwreck and entered the G8 branch a day ago. That's right, that's the warship. Li Yan nodded. So, Vincent did indeed have an accident, and then you used a small warship to disguise it as a shipwreck, sending Momausaji and a group of elite Marines into the G8 branch, then waiting for us to walk right into your trap, and finally trapping us? Well, I never thought I'd be outmaneuvered by the Navy. Having figured everything out, Taros' face turned extremely ugly. He was always the one outmaneuvering the Navy, but today he was outmaneuvered by them? But do you think you've won just because Momausaji is here? Don't dream. Even if she's here, so what? I still have a way to handle this. Feeling humiliated, Taros roared. Of course, he wasn't just shouting in vain, he had already figured out what to do next, defeat these Marines in front of him, take them hostage, and force Momausaji to open the fortress gates and let them leave. As long as it's not Akainu or any of the other well-known hawkish officers in the headquarters, using Marines as hostages is a foolproof tactic, especially the more hostages, the greater the chance of success. Here, there are over 100 Marines on the two warships, and on his side, there are approximately 200 pirates, along with the captains and officers of various pirate crews approaching in the water. After all, these captains are worth at least tens of millions. Even if their pirate ships are destroyed, they won't die so easily. Even the devil fruit users are currently being held back by some officers and haven't sunk to the bottom of the sea. Therefore, Talos's fighting strength is still quite formidable. He is confident that once the other pirate ships approach and the pirate captains and officers in the water come ashore, defeating these 100+ Marines and using them as hostages will be incredibly easy. However, are you thinking there are dozens of pirates with bounties of tens of millions in the water? Once they surface, dealing with us will be a piece of cake? Najiko, keep the charge low, don't damage the ship. 3000 volts should be just right. Li Yan, Seeing Talus's confident expression, naturally knew what he was planning. But the question is, do you think I didn't think of that, or wasn't prepared? Yes, Colonel. Upon being called by name, Najiko immediately understood Li Yan's meaning and, to the horror of all the pirates, pointed his right hand towards the water outside the side of the ship. Discharge 3000 volts. Chapter 80 discusses the importance of foundations. Honestly, the physical constitution of people in the pirate world is ridiculously strong. It was like that when they interrogated Kuro. A few hundred volts of electricity wouldn't kill him, and they had to use over 4000 volts to pry open his mouth, but it still wasn't fatal. But that doesn't mean it's okay just because it's not fatal. When Najiko continuously injected 3000 volts of electricity into the sea, it instantly paralyzed most of the pirates submerged, causing them to sink. Even the stronger ones were barely holding on, and judging by this, they probably wouldn't last even half a minute. Damn it, stop it now. Seeing this, Taro immediately panicked. Perhaps the captains and officers of those pirate crews were strong, but submerged in the sea with someone continuously injecting 3000 volts of electricity, could they handle it? No, he had to stop that girl immediately, or all 100 plus people in the sea would be wiped out. Thinking this, Talus didn't dare delay for a second longer and charged forward, brandishing his sword. Shave. Clang. Seeing this, Li Yan moved his feet and instantly leaped out, arriving directly in front of Najiko, firmly blocking Talus's downward slash. Even when fighting Vincent in Mock Town, Li Yan hadn't used his full strength, but now, after blocking Talus's sword, both his arms were a little numb. It seems that he has to go all out today. Najiko, continue. Luffy and Buggy, go and take care of those executives. Leave it to me. Luffy, who had been waiting impatiently, immediately charged forward, fists clenched, after hearing Li Yan's words. Looking at the 5 executives in front of him, he raised his right leg and stretched it out. Gum gum battle axe. Thud. But before he could unleash it, Buggy kicked him away from behind. Buggy, what are you doing? Are you an idiot? If that kick landed, this pirate ship would fall apart. We're devil fruit users, how can we survive without a foothold at sea? It's okay, I've already learned moonwalk. You can, but I can't. Luffy picked his nose, looking completely unconcerned. Buggy, on the other hand, retorted with a look of utter disdain. Although Buggy had learned the 6 powers from Thor after joining the 18th branch, the problem was that Buggy's martial arts talent was quite average. So much so that after so much time, he hadn't even fully mastered the 6 powers, shave, let alone moonwalk. Tisk, what a hassle. Hey, what's with that expression? Are you mocking me, Buggy? Watch out, or I'll give you a decompose everything. Bring it on, do you think I'm afraid of you? Boom. Just as Luffy rolled up his sleeves, ready to fight, 2 bolts of black lightning suddenly fell from the sky, striking them directly. Luffy fared somewhat better, thanks to his gum gum fruit's superior insulation properties, but Buggy fared much worse, collapsing onto the deck with a completely different hairstyle, an afro, and puffing out smoke and dust. Didn't you hear the colonel? Get up there. If you keep dawdling, I'll unleash a full power version of lightning punishment. And you, Luffy, don't think I can't do anything to you just because you're a rubber man. If you don't work, I'll unleash the railgun. Seeing the 2 unreliable individuals, Najiko grew angry and unleashed 2 lightning strikes while continuously discharging electricity. Of course, the power was definitely limited, otherwise, the ship would have been destroyed in one hit. Threatened by Najiko, Buggy pushed off and stood up, while Luffy shuddered at the mention of the railgun. After all, on the way, Luffy had tried to withstand a railgun from Najiko, well, an attempt to take it head-on. And the result? Najiko only fired a single, 30% powered railgun shot, and it sent Luffy flying into the sea. He swallowed a lot of seawater that time and still feels a lingering fear. No longer daring to argue, the 2 of them, in perfect unison, turned and charged silently towards the officers. Shave. Gum gum bullet. Chop chop, ground flying. Chop chop, everything decomposes. Gum gum machine gun. Chop chop. Instantly, the 2 clowns became like tigers among sheep, wreaking havoc. Yes, a flock of sheep. These officers of the Talus pirates were mostly worth only 10 or 20 million, the strongest only a little over 30 million. For Luffy and Buggy now, while they might not be able to one-punch them all, a combo attack could easily take them down. Bang! Just as the 2 were unleashing their various skills, A gunshot rang out. The pirate, who had been beaten half to death by Luffy and was just one hit away from finishing him off, was blown in midair to the head. Ha ha ha, it must be that Usopp guy. He's so slow. My disintegration is so effective. One hit and he's gone. Bang. However, just as Buggy finished mocking Luffy, the pirate he had been holding down with his right hand was also blown in the head before Buggy could even use disintegration. Looking at the pirate officer hanging there, Buggy's face darkened. Usopp, you dare steal my head? Are you getting impatient? That's right, Usopp, you've gone too far. The two, surprisingly in sync, simultaneously abandoned the remaining 3 officers and turned to rush back to the warship to give that long-nosed guy a good beating. Before they could even take a few steps, they saw Negico's fierce glare, and they trembled in fear, immediately turning to pounce on the remaining 3 officers. Meanwhile, the battle between Li Yan and Talus had reached a fever pitch. Both were incredibly fast, rarely pausing for more than half a second in any one place, the clanging of swords clashing echoing from different directions. Li Yan was still using his method for dealing with second-stage swordsmen, relentlessly engaging in close combat. While second-stage swordsmen could unleash flying slashes, they still needed to build up their power, unlike the unrestricted freedom of the third stage. Therefore, by staying close and entangled, Talus had no chance to use his flying slashes. With flying slashes restricted, the difference between the second and first stages was minimal. The competition now boiled down to the fundamentals of swordsmanship. Forget sword techniques, in this close-quarters combat, only basic sword play was everything. In terms of basic sword techniques, Taros was definitely not as skilled as Li Yan. After all, Li Yan trained his swordsmanship in a 10 times gravity chamber. Whether it was power, accuracy, or speed, Li Yan had reached near perfection. With the added assistance of the shave move from the 6 styles of the Navy, Taros found himself at a disadvantage. This puzzled him greatly. He was clearly at the second level of a swordsman, so why was he at a disadvantage against Li Yan, who was merely at the iron-cutting realm? This didn't make sense. However, Li Yan had no time to care about Taros's thoughts at this moment. The constant notification sounds in his mind were simply too wonderful. Ling. Captain Negico under the host's command successfully killed Tira with a bounty of 58 million berries, gaining 290,000 merit points. Ding. Captain Negico under the host's command successfully killed Callus with a bounty of 72 million berries, gaining 360,000 merit points. Ding. Captain Negico under the host's command successfully killed Salin with a bounty of 12 million berries, gaining 60,000 merit points. Ding. Captain Negico under the host's command successfully killed Buck with a bounty of 48 million berries, gaining 240,000 merit points. Ding. Captain Negico under the host's command successfully killed Beth with a bounty of 28 million berries, gaining 140,000 merit points. Ling. Chapter 81 Preventing You from Self-Harming, Bug. In just over a minute, the pirates who had been submerged in the water had started contributing merit points, much to Li Yan's delight. The rumble fruit was actually quite useful on the high seas, especially when clearing out those who had fallen into the water after destroying enemy fleets. After the battle at the G8 branch, he'd have several million merit points, and then he could finally unlock some of the buildings he'd been eyeing for months. Clang. After parrying Taros's sword strike again, Li Yan's fighting style immediately changed, sacrificing some strength to significantly increase his speed. Although the cost was some strength, having emerged from the tenfold gravity training chamber, his strength was already considerably greater than Taros's. Therefore, even with some sacrifice, he could still maintain a tie with Taros, but this increased speed immediately threw Taros into disarray. A fast sword, a sword of extreme speed. Clang 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 clang. Even with all his might, he could only barely parry. Li Yan's sword speed was simply too fast, and it was continuous without any pause. Under normal circumstances, no one would fight using this method, as it consumes too much stamina. But Li Yan was different. With his LV-15 high-speed recovery characteristic, this amount of consumption was nothing to him. If he wanted, he could even continue for a whole hour. However, could Taros withstand it for an hour? Obviously not. This could be seen from the increasing number of wounds on his body. Damn it, damn it, damn it. You actually forced me to use my trump card. You really deserve to die. Take this punch. Li Yan was a little confused. Had this guy lost his mind? He hadn't heard that this guy was good at physical combat. Bang! He caught Taros' fist in midair with his left hand without expending any effort. Sure enough, this guy's physical combat skills were terrible. However, the next second, Li Yan's expression changed. Injury transfer. With a low shout from Talus, the numerous sword wounds on his body gradually disappeared, while Li Yan, though his clothes weren't torn, was covered in blood. The sudden pain throughout his body caused the unprepared Li Yan to stagger, but fortunately, he managed to steady himself by using his Tempest Fang to brace himself on the ground. The transfer fruit. Although I obtained this fruit and made amends, I can only transfer injuries at present, but it can double the severity of the injury during the transfer. So, when you suddenly threw a punch just now, you wanted me to catch it with my hand, thus achieving physical contact. Recalling Talus's strange behavior just now, Li Yan couldn't help but ask, "You're very clever, you even guessed the activation conditions of my fruit. But it's too late. With such injuries, you have no chance of defeating me." Li Yan truly didn't expect to suffer such a huge loss. Talus was actually a devil fruit user, and with such a bizarre fruit ability at that. To be honest, Taros had already been slashed more than 10 times by himself, none of which were fatal, but the situation between the two had completely reversed. Taros, who was originally covered in wounds, had recovered to full state, while Li Yan, who was originally in a good state, was now covered in injuries. If it were just like Taros' previous state, it wouldn't be so bad. But the key issue is that this transfer fruit had an additional effect of aggravating injuries when transferring them. According to Taros, this effect was more than double, to the point that Li Yan's injuries had now reached the point of being seriously injured. The devil fruits of this world are simply outrageous. Looking at Li Yan's current miserable state, Taros licked his lips with great enjoyment, and then charged forward with his sword. Clang! Despite the excruciating pain in his body, Li Yan struggled to raise his Ranga to barely block the attack. In reality, given Li Yan's current state, it was impossible for him to block Taros' full-force attack, but the other party clearly did not intend to finish Li Yan off immediately, but rather wanted to play with him like a cat playing with a mouse. This was also Taros' consistent method of torturing and killing Marines. However, what he didn't know was that just now, a notification sounded in Li Yan's mind, a notification sound that left Li Yan completely bewildered. Ding. Host's swordsmanship proficiency increased by 7%. This was simply unbelievable. He had only blocked a sword strike. How could it have increased by so much? You know, the boost he got from withstanding Talus's flying slash was only 5%, but now. Hey system, come out and explain yourself. Ding. Because the host is currently severely injured, during combat, the proficiency bonus will increase with the severity of the injury. Does this mean that walking the line between life and death is the only way to improve faster? Ding. The host can understand it that way. Ding. But there are limits to the improvement. Whenever the host is severely injured, the improvement to a single skill is limited to a maximum of 3 levels. After exceeding 3 levels, the extra bonus will no longer appear. Okay, are you afraid I'll exploit a bug? Come to think of it, unless I'm brain dead, I'd intentionally injure myself. Ding. The host has a history of exploiting bugs. This system has to be cautious. Ding. And the system believes that without this restriction, the host would definitely injure himself before every battle. This conversation was impossible to continue. Li Yan was speechless. What do you take me for, a self-harm maniac? Okay, if there were no restrictions, it seems I might actually do that. After all, this efficiency in improving strength is too tempting, isn't it? System, display my current swordsmanship level and proficiency. Ding. Host's current swordsmanship level is LV 57, proficiency is 68%, level 3? Just enough. Isn't Talus going to play with me? Perfect. Looking at Talus's enjoyable expression, Li Yan couldn't help but think to himself. Colonel Najiko, who noticed Li Yan's situation, panicked and shouted. Najiko, you take Luffy and Buggy to support Old Man Thor. But, Colonel, you. It's alright, he won't kill me. At most, he'll use me as a prisoner to threaten Vice Admiral Momousagi. Am I right, bloodthirsty Taros? Ha ha ha, you're quite clever. But before I take you hostage, you'd better let me have my fun first. Taros laughed arrogantly, while Li Yan turned to Najiko, frantically giving her meaningful glances and mouthing the words. Be smart, hurry up and take those 2 clowns away, Otherwise my plan to advance to the second level of swordsmanship will definitely be ruined. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Dual Attribute Fusion Sword Intent. Li Yan was currently experiencing both pain and pleasure. The pain stemmed from the difficulty of blocking each strike, which even caused his wounds to bleed more. The pleasure came from the constant system notifications ringing in his mind. Ding. Host's swordsmanship proficiency increased by 8%. Current level LV, 58. Proficiency 24%. Ding. Host's swordsmanship proficiency increased by 7%. Current level LV, 58. Proficiency 31%. Ding. Host's swordsmanship proficiency increased by 9%. Current level LV, 58. Proficiency 40%. Ding. Host's swordsmanship proficiency increased by 6%. Current level LV, 58. Proficiency 46%. The rate of proficiency increase was phenomenal. Walking the line between life and death makes one stronger. The ancients were right. In the blink of an eye, his swordsmanship had reached LV, 59, and he even had some understanding of how to project sword energy. Whether this was an awakening from his near-death experience or simply due to his swordsmanship level approaching 60, Li Yan didn't know and couldn't determine at the moment. In short, Li Yan had a feeling that he was about to grasp the key, and he had already stepped into the gate of the second realm of swordsmanship, the external release of sword energy. Forget it, I'm done playing. If this continues, I'm afraid you'll die. What? Hearing Taro's words, Li Yan was completely dumbfounded. What was wrong with these pirates? Vincent was like this, and now Taro's was too. Did they know how inhumane it was to call a halt at the very last moment before the explosion? Looking at his 72% proficiency level, Li Yan was on the verge of tears. Fine, if you won't attack, then I will. Dragging his slightly trembling hand, he directly swung his sword. However, at this moment, Li Yan's strength and speed were less than 30% of what they used to be. It wasn't that his injuries had truly reduced his strength that much. In fact, if he gritted his teeth, he could still achieve 80% of his attack power. However, Li Yan had his own plan. He couldn't expend too much energy at this moment and had to conserve his strength for a comeback attack. Clang. Hey, what are you trying to do with that weak attack? Clang. Ho ha, put some effort into it. Clang. Keep going, let me have some more fun. Clang. Come on, I won't block anymore, let's just treat this as practice or footwork. Ho ha. Taros laughed wildly as he casually parried Li Yan's next slash. Just now he was completely dominating him, but now he couldn't even hold his sword properly. Li Yan's disheveled appearance excited Taros immensely. He couldn't control himself anymore. He should just torture this guy to death. No. Letting him continue his attack and bleeding to death would be very interesting. Anyway, there were so many Marines around, it didn't matter who he used as a hostage. However, Taros, in the midst of extreme excitement, didn't notice the slight smile that appeared on Li Yan's lips. Ding. Host's swordsmanship proficiency increased by 5%. Current level LV, 60. Proficiency 3%. Ding. Host completed daily task 3, raising swordsmanship cultivation to level 60, obtaining one sword skill. Basic attack is ultimate move, insight. Slowly raising the sword in his hand, Li Yan once again assumed the exact same stance as the previous few strikes. Seeing this, Talus, who had already sheathed his sword, crossed his arms and looked at Li Yan with a mocking expression. Slash. Less than 5 meters away from Talus, Li Yan mustered all his strength and swung his storm fang down fiercely. A flying slash with intertwined black and white colors instantly shot out, instantly covering the distance of several meters, directly hitting the unprepared Talus, sending him flying dozens of meters away until he crashed into a pirate ship that was approaching. Huff. This strike almost drained all of Li Yan's remaining strength. He was panting heavily, and if he hadn't used Storm Fang to support himself on the ground, he probably wouldn't have been able to stand up. Ding. The host has killed Blood Butcher Taros, with a bounty of 215 E, gaining 1,075,000 merit points. Ding. The host has completed a special mission, killing or defeating Blood Butcher Taros, and has received a reward achievement pack. Ding. The host has successfully comprehended the special fusion sword intent destruction and death sword intent through the trials of life and death. Ding. The host has comprehended sword intent ahead of schedule and has received an achievement pack. Hearing the notifications in his mind, Li Yan was somewhat embarrassed, but in a very good mood. He had actually received 2 special packs at once. However, it was strange that he had comprehended sword intent so quickly. Speaking of which, isn't sword intent the dividing line between the 3rd level of a swordsman and a great swordsman in the One Piece world? He had comprehended sword intent at the 2nd level, so could he still be considered a swordsman? Thinking of this, Li Yan was dumbfounded. System, open my attribute panel. Ding. The host's attribute panel has been opened. Li Yan rank, Colonel position, Commander of the 18th Branch Base of the East China Sea Navy Power Level. 980 Martial Arts Level, B rank Talent, LV, 38, 50%, Swordsmanship Level, SS rank Talent, LV, 60, 3%, Sword Intent Level, Destruction, Death, Fusion Sword Intent LV, 1, 30%, Devil Fruit, none 3 types of Haki, Armament Haki LV, 0, Awaken 85%, Observation Haki LV, 0, Awakened 92%, Conqueror's Haki LV, 0, Unawakened, Special Talent, SS Rank Combat Talent Exclusive Trait, High Speed Recovery LV, 16, Skills, Naval 6 Styles, Shave LV, 35, 75%, Naval 6 Styles, Iron Body LV, 32, 65%, Naval 6 Styles, Paper Drawing LV, 30, 25%, Naval 6 Styles, Moonwalk LV, 20, 35%, Naval 6 Styles, Tempest Kick LV, 5, 15%, Naval 6 Styles, Finger Pistol LV, 4, 25%. Sure enough, he gained a new attribute, Sword Intent. How did you manage that? However, just as Li Yan was pondering this situation, Momousaji's voice came from above. It turned out that after noticing Li Yan's situation, Momousaji had used Moonwalk to rush over. After landing on the deck, she stared at the man before her, waiting for him to answer her question. She had seen that final strike, a flying slash imbued with sword intent. As a great swordsman, how could she not understand what that represented? The problem is, judging from the flying slash Li Yan unleashed, both its scale and range are still within the 2nd realm of swordsmanship, not yet reaching the 3rd realm, let alone the level of a great swordsman. If he's not a great swordsman, then what about the sword intent contained within that flying slash? He sensed both destruction and death within that sword intent. This is simply unbelievable. Not only did he comprehend sword intent upon reaching the 2nd realm, but this sword intent also possesses 2 attributes. This is unheard of in recorded history. You're asking me? Who am I supposed to ask? I myself only just broke through to the 2nd realm, and this was my first time using the flying slash, okay? Alright, before I lost my strength, I could also unleash the flying slash, and I even touched the threshold of a great swordsman. Could it be because of the retraining? With a serious expression, Li Yan made up a story. However, Momousaji seemed to take this explanation seriously. Could rebuilding really have this effect? Is that why you have 2 attributes? But what realm are you at now? To Momotaro's question, Li Yan could only shrug. I'd like to know myself. Chapter 83 Host, are you dreaming? Watching this, Momousaji felt a complex mix of emotions. This guy, just over 2 months ago he was a swordsman, and now he's already reached the 2nd level of sword mastery. There's still a 1-year agreement between them, and although there are only a little over 9 months left, at Li Yan's speed, can he really win that 1-year agreement? Shaking her head, she knew now wasn't the time to think about these things. There was still a large group of pirates to deal with. She quickly called over a nearby marine to watch over Li Yan, then used Moonwalk to head to other battle zones. In fact, in the 3 main battle zones, Momousaji's side had already finished, and Li Yan's side, after Talus and several of his officers were killed, was also in its final stages. What remained was Thor's side. Although they weren't the main force of the pirates, there were still 2 pirate ships, their captains with bounties of 68 million and 62 million respectively, plus several vice captains or officers with considerable bounties. Thor was having a tough time. Despite his advanced age, he was struggling to hold off 2 pirate captains with bounties exceeding 60 million, and his defeat was becoming increasingly apparent. Fortunately, Najiko arrived at the crucial moment with Luffy and Buggy, turning the tide of battle. Soon after, Momousagi also arrived using Moonwalk. In short, within minutes, all the major pirates had been killed or captured. The remaining task was to clean up, as some pirates inevitably hid during the chaotic battle. However, their hiding was futile. Not only did Thor and Najiko possess observation haki, but several of the 30 female soldiers brought by Momousagi had awakened it. A search revealed quite a few fugitives, some of whom had even swum to the central island of the G8 branch during the initial bombardment. Unfortunately, hiding was pointless against observation haki. The next day, when Li Yan slowly opened his eyes, he was already lying in a single-room hospital room at the G8 branch. Looking at his hands, exposed outside the blanket and wrapped in bandages, Li Yan gave a self-deprecating bitter smile. Indeed, in this pirate world, one can't underestimate anyone. His carelessness had left him covered in injuries. He had other options, but he chose to use his bare hands to catch Talus's attack. Wasn't that carelessness? He had to remember this lesson, or he might die from it one day. After all, this was a world where all sorts of strange abilities could appear. However, this wasn't without its rewards. He gained over 5 million merit points, making him incredibly wealthy overnight. Not to mention, he also had 2 achievement packs, and the basic attack becomes ultimate move tip in his system space. A truly fruitful harvest. System, open both achievement packs for me, ding. Achievement pack opened, quantity 2, ding. Obtain 200 random marines, ding. Obtain 50 elite marines, ding. Obtain the Great Raid Sword, Sun Chaser, ding. Obtained a dream on the development of steam engine technology, ding. Obtained a dream on the development of rifled cannon technology, ding. Obtain 1 high-level talent draw opportunity, ding. Obtain 1 high-level devil fruit draw opportunity, ding. Obtained 120x gravity training room, ding. Obtained 1 blueprint for a chemical research institute, ding. Obtain 1 specialized chemical research team. Wow. Opening these 2 achievement packs together, there's quite a lot of good stuff. 200 ordinary marines plus 50 elite marines, just enough to complete the last of my current daily tasks. As for the Great Raid Sword, Sun Chaser, Li Yan didn't feel anything special. After all, in the One Piece world, apart from the supreme grade swords, the good grade swords and great raid swords weren't particularly special. They were simply more durable and sharper, and at most, they were more prestigious. It would be much more interesting if he could obtain famous swords from other worlds in the future, and Li Yan believed there was a chance, since the gravity training room wasn't from this world, was it? Next were 2 development scenarios similar to the previous firearms. One was steam engine technology, and the other was rifled cannon technology. The former, once successful, would allow Li Yan to traverse the comm belt, while the latter was simply amazing, rifled cannons. It's important to know that currently, the One Piece world still uses muzzle-loading smoothbore cannons. They fire spherical projectiles, have a slow rate of fire, short range, and because the cannon barrel alone determines the projectile's direction, their accuracy is low. They're inaccurate beyond a few hundred meters, and beyond 1,000 meters, they're practically guaranteed to miss. Therefore, once rifled cannons are invented, the combat power of warships will increase tenfold, and that's no exaggeration. More importantly, the rewards also include a chemical research institute and a research team specializing in chemistry. These are valuable assets. On a small scale, they can improve the power of bullets. On a larger scale, they can increase food production, develop drugs for various currently incurable diseases in the One Piece world, develop new energy sources and new materials, and so on. The applications are numerous. As for the remaining items, there's 1 chance each to draw talent and a devil fruit. It depends on what you draw. If you draw devil fruit development talent and the devil fruit itself has a powerful ability, then you can eat it yourself. But if you don't draw development talent, then as long as the devil fruit isn't too bad, you can give it to Nami, since you promised to get her one. Speaking of Nami, she didn't come along this time but went to help Li Yan find the treasurer. Li Yan is also somewhat looking forward to seeing if she has found Karina yet. Okay, let's ignore that for now. The final reward is the 20x gravity chamber. Needless to say, it's top tier. Once we get back, I'll hide it underground, just like the other gravity training chambers. System, use my talent and devil fruit advanced extraction opportunities together, ding. In progress on advanced talent extraction, ding. Obtain SSS class ship design talent, ding. In progress on advanced devil fruit extraction. Ding. Obtain 1 rumble fruit. What the hell? Li Yan was completely dumbfounded. Ship design talent? And it's the highest level of advanced talent extraction, SSS class? Are you kidding me? And what the hell is that rumble fruit? Didn't I already get one? You damn system, come out and explain yourself. I promise I won't kill you. Ding. As this system has stated before, all devil fruits obtained through drawing are not originally from this world, but are devil fruits with no weaknesses created by the system. Ding. Therefore, there is no such thing as only one of each type of fruit. And the types of fruits are not limited to those in the One Piece world. Otherwise, why would the host believe that a high-level draw would guarantee the strongest fruit? Ding. Wishful thinking, seriously. This system not only criticizes and belittles people, but now it's even learned to swear? Hearing the system's voice in his mind, Li Yan was speechless. Just as the system said, these fruits were originally created by the system, so how could there be a limitation of only one of each type? However, what concerned Li Yan most was another statement the system made: the types of fruits are not limited to those in the One Piece world. Otherwise, he wouldn't have obtained the rumble fruit through a high-level draw. In other words, if he used the super draw, he could even draw an ability that doesn't exist in the One Piece world and is even more powerful than the rumble fruit. Chapter 84 Second Class Branch. Marineford, Grand Line. In the conference room, the core members of the Navy, except for Akanyu and Aokiji who were at the New World G branch, were all gathered. Their only topic today was the promotion of the 18th branch. Normally, such branch promotions in the East Blue wouldn't require their involvement. Vice Admiral Savara, responsible for the 4 Seas branches, could make the decision directly. However, the East Blue 18th branch was an exception. According to the battle report submitted by Mamausaji last night, the 18th branch's military merits, combined with previous achievements, had exceeded 3 billion berries. What did this mean? According to the Navy's regulations, this met the requirements for promotion to a second-class branch, the same level as the G8 branch. This wasn't simply a matter of changing a branch's rank. Headquarters had to allocate 3 billion berries to this branch annually. If it were in the Grand Line or the New World, it wouldn't matter, but this branch was in the East Blue, and even within the East Blue, it was in one of the most remote corners that even pirates avoided. This is a bit ridiculous. What's the point of spending 3 billion berries every year to maintain such a branch? Hence, this meeting of the core high-ranking officials. PFFT, ha, Sengoku, I told you before, wait and see. But you were so eager to push Li Yan forward. If Zephyr hadn't pleaded with you, you might have even wanted him to retire immediately. Now you've embarrassed yourself, haven't you? Garp was in an extremely happy mood. According to Mamausaji's battle report, his grandson Luffy had killed 4 pirates with bounties over 50 million in this battle, and more than a dozen others with bounties. If you add his previous military achievements, a promotion to Commodore wouldn't be unreasonable. Although Sengoku probably wouldn't agree to a direct promotion to Commodore, a colonel was definitely a given, and all of this was thanks to Li Yan. Therefore, Garp had now become a Li Yan fanboy, and had mocked Sengoku about this at least 10 times since last night. Tisk tisk. Li Yan is really terrifying. He's only been exiled by headquarters for 3 months, and he's already accumulated 3 billion berry merits. After Garp finished speaking, Kizaru immediately followed suit, his face exaggerated. In reality, if we only consider the number of enemies killed personally, the 18 branches wouldn't even reach 3 billion berry merits. All of them combined would only be a little over 2 billion. But the problem lies in Mamausaji letting Li Yan command. According to the merit system, even if a commander of a battle doesn't kill a single pirate, they can still obtain 30% of the total battle merits. Of course, this is on the premise that there are no obvious mistakes in command and that the Navy achieves victory. And among those 27 pirate crews, the total bounty of all the pirates is a whopping 2.2 billion berries. After obtaining 30% from that, plus Talus's 215 million, it just pushes the 18 branches merits to the 3 billion berry mark. This is a real headache for Sengoku. Not to mention the 18 branches, Li Yan's merits alone are even higher than some vice admirals in the Navy. Didn't he see the results of the battle on the main seat? His face had turned black from all the talking by Garp and Kizaru. Shut up, you 2 bastards. Zeph, tell me your opinion, after all, he's your disciple. After glaring at the 2, Sengoku looked at the composed Zeph beside him and asked, Me? What opinion can I have? As long as you don't deliberately suppress Li Yan, anything else is fine. What does don't deliberately suppress mean? This bastard's F means I have to follow the rules. If that's the case, what's the point of holding a meeting? I wanted to hear your suggestions on whether there's a reasonable way to smooth things over, okay? We can't just give Li Yan a vice admiral, then give Najiko a rear admiral, and then give his subordinates several commodores and a bunch of colonels, right? The key is that Li Yan's 18th branch, excluding the Marine smoker sent for training, only has a few dozen people, and besides the 10 or so left to guard the branch, the rest are mostly captains? The most outrageous thing is that all 100 Marines trained at the 18th branch will return to Laga Town with the rank of captain. The image is too beautiful to contemplate. Well, the image is indeed too beautiful. You see, according to the original story, Tashiji will only be a sergeant after more than a year, and the lowest rank among the 100 recruits will be ensigns. That's just ridiculous. Sengoku, I don't think this is as difficult as you think. How so? Sengoku quickly asked, seeing Churu suddenly speak up. Sure enough, Churu is reliable at crucial moments, no one else makes things easy for him. Actually, the key issue is the same as last time. You think upgrading the East Blue 18th branch to a second-class branch is a pure waste of the Navy's limited military budget, right? Yes, that's exactly what I mean. If it were the Grand Line or the New World, would I need to go through all this trouble? Nodding, Sengoku deeply agreed with Churu's words. Churu really understands him. Have you ever thought about what you expect a second-class branch to achieve with 3 billion yen a year? Catching pirates, of course. That's it. What's there to worry about? What do you mean? Sengoku was completely bewildered. What did he mean by that's it? What did he mean by what's there to worry about? He couldn't understand it all. Sigh, that's why you shouldn't limit your thinking to the location, but to the results. For example, branches of the same rank, you allocate the same amount of money each year, but a branch across the 4 seas can catch pirates worth billions every year, while a branch on the Grand Line can only catch pirates worth a little over $1 billion every year. So, what do you think? Churu said slowly, still resting her chin on her hands. That analogy is inappropriate because such a thing is simply impossible. How could the 4 seas branches possibly capture billions of pirates in a year? Wait, why are you all looking at me like that? He directly refuted Churu's analogy, but before he could continue, Sengoku noticed that everyone in the meeting room was looking at him with strange eyes. Is it really impossible? Why don't you think about it again? Just as Sengoku was somewhat bewildered, Churu added another blow. At this moment, Sengoku finally realized that Churu was referring to the 18 branches. And let alone a year, they had managed to accumulate 3 billion military merits in just 3 months. Sengoku, you need to consider this from a different perspective. All the branches are like branches of our Navy. You need to look at which branch is more profitable, not where that branch is located. Even if it's located in a desolate place. As long as it has sufficient profitability, it has a reason to exist, doesn't it? That makes sense, so much so. Sengoku found that he couldn't refute it at all. To put it simply, the annual allocation of funds to each branch by headquarters is like an investment. It doesn't matter where Li Yan does business, the key is that Li Yan ensures your investment yields a substantial return. That's the most important thing. Okay, I understand. But what about the rank issue? Having so many officers in one branch is too exaggerated. Having made his decision, Sengoku didn't say anything more and instead asked about the rank. That's simple. Ranks based on actual military merit, then demote them by 1 rank due to their relatively short service. After all, rising too quickly isn't a good thing. That way, no one can say anything. Churu replied without hesitation. In reality, the core reason for Sengoku's headache was that the Marines at headquarters looked down on the Marines in the branches, especially those in the Shikkei branches. The result was that a branch across the 4 seas suddenly had a large number of officers and colonels awarded ranks, which would definitely attract some criticism within the Navy, even if the ranks were awarded entirely based on military merit. Therefore, demoting them by 1 rank would prevent the promotions from happening too quickly and would also silence any dissent within headquarters or elsewhere. Yes, it's decided. The East China Sea 18th branch is officially upgraded to a second-class branch. Li Yan is awarded the rank of Rear Admiral and appointed Governor General of the East China Sea, overseeing all naval branches in the East China Sea. As for the ranks of the others, after calculating their battle merits, they will all be demoted by 1 rank. Finally, Smoker's 100 Marines are no longer suitable to return to Laga Town. Let them stay at the 18th branch. After a moment's thought, Sengoku added, "That's right, these special cases should be concentrated at the 18th branch. Don't let them cause any more trouble in Laga Town." Chapter 85 How should you repay your sister? Ding. Host has completed a special mission, passed the headquarters assessment, and become the Governor General of the East China Sea. Rewards include 500 random Marines, 50 elite Marines, and 1 opportunity to attract powerful individuals. Ding. Since the host's branch has been approved for promotion to a second-class branch, this mission is considered an overachievement. Additional rewards include 1 opportunity to draw high-level talent and 1 opportunity to draw high-level trait. In a single room of the G8 branch's infirmary, Li Yan was looking at yet another rumble fruit in his system inventory, somewhat bewildered, when the system's notification suddenly sounded, startling him. He wasn't surprised that headquarters had confirmed the assessment's completion. After all, almost a day had passed, and Mimausaji must have already sent a battle report to headquarters. What was unexpected was that the 18th branch had been approved for promotion to a second-class branch, something Li Yan hadn't anticipated at all. It was truly a huge surprise. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to gather all 800 random Marines and 150 elite Marines he had. After all, a third-class branch can only have a maximum of 1,000 Marines, while a second-class branch can have a whopping 5,000. System, use up the talent and trait extraction opportunities I received as rewards. Ling. In progress with advanced talent extraction. Ling. Obtain SS rank Devil Fruit development talent. Ling. In progress with advanced exclusive trait extraction. Ling. Obtained exclusive trait, Dream Control. Here it comes, finally here. Li Yan's long-awaited Devil Fruit development talent, and it's directly SS rank. But what's the use of the Dream Control trait? System, please explain. Ling. Exclusive trait, Dream Control. The holder of this exclusive trait can completely control their dreams, even cultivating within them. However, the benefits gained from cultivating in dreams are only 10% of the normal amount. Ling. In dreams, the host is a god, omnipotent. Ding. This trait is upgradable, with 100 levels. Each level increases the benefits by 1,000th, up to a maximum of 20% of the normal benefits. Hiss. At first glance, this doesn't seem that impressive, since the cultivation effect is only 10%, even sleeping for 10 hours is equivalent to only cultivating for 1 hour. But it's not actually like that. According to the system, in dreams, one is a god, omnipotent. That means one can create opponents out of thin air in dreams, like Hawkeye Mihawk. This way, one can even fight various masters from the One Piece world while sleeping, accumulating combat experience and gaining various proficiency levels. It's practically a divine skill. Nodding, Li Yan couldn't be more satisfied. However, after opening the system space again and looking at the rumble fruit, he hesitated once more. To eat it or not to eat it? This was a very serious question. The rumble fruit was undoubtedly one of the strongest devil fruits in the One Piece world, especially its attack power, which was even considered the strongest among Logia-type fruits. A few days ago, Li Yan would have eaten it without hesitation. But the problem was, just now, the system had reminded Li Yan that this thing was only obtained through a high-level draw, while a super draw could yield even more powerful devil fruit abilities that didn't exist in the One Piece world. Therefore, the rumble fruit no longer seemed so appealing to Li Yan. System, since this is a devil fruit with no weaknesses, does that mean eating two won't cause my body to explode and die? Ding. Host, you're daydreaming again. The reason eating two devil fruits will cause someone to explode and die is because the energy contained in a devil fruit is too great. The human body can only withstand one. This isn't because the devil fruit has a weakness. If anything, it's because humans are too weak. Okay, this time the system not only looked down on Li Yan, but also launched a sweeping generalization against all of humanity. It's clearly because you humans are too weak to withstand it, yet you insist on saying I have a weakness. Devil fruit, where's your manners? Already used to the system's mockery, Li Yan didn't react to the system's words, but instead began to think. Since he couldn't guarantee he could eat a second devil fruit in the future, he decided not to eat the rumble fruit. After all, given limitations and choices, he naturally wanted the best. It's just a super draw opportunity costing 10 million merit points. He could easily get one after sweeping the grand line a few more times. Therefore, there's no need to rush to eat the rumble fruit now. Besides, my main focus recently should be on swordsmanship. I should strive to become a great swordsman first before worrying about anything else. As for this rumble fruit, I'll use the A rank fruit I obtained earlier, which I haven't used yet, to grant random talents on Nami. If she develops a devil fruit talent, I'll give it to Nami, making us a perfect Thunder God Sisters duo. If not, I'll keep it and see how things go. Perfect. What are you laughing at? So happy? Share it with your older sister. Oh, I was so focused earlier that I didn't even notice when Mamausaji opened the hospital room door. Now I see her standing at the door, smiling at me. However, I feel a chill run down my spine because of Mamausaji's smile. Vice Admiral Jian. Alright, lie still. The doctor said you need to stay in bed for 3 days before you can get up. Don't get up now. Just as I was about to sit up, Li Yan spoke. If this were in Li Yan's previous life, it would have absolutely shocked all the doctors. Such a serious injury, and you're telling him to get out of bed and move around after only 3 days? Are you trying to kill him? However, in the world of One Piece, it's perfectly normal. After all, the people in this world are incredibly strong, even. Li Yan felt that getting out of bed and moving around now wouldn't be a big problem. The results of this battle have been tallied. Want to know? Please. Li Yan nodded earnestly. After all, halfway through the battle, he had lost consciousness due to severe injuries and exhaustion, and he really didn't know what happened afterward. Well, after you collapsed, the Marines of the 18th branch performed very well. Hey, what do you mean by collapsed? Have you no manners? Among them, Nezuko, Luffy, Buggy, and Usopp performed the most impressively, especially Usopp. Despite being quite weak, he managed to kill a 69 million bounty pirate using only the Corona Type 18 rifle, and also killed nearly 10 other pirates with bounties. Even Mamausaji herself was visibly shocked. It was truly astonishing. In terms of raw strength alone, Usopp might not even be as strong as an ordinary marine under Li Yan's command. His power level possibly not even reaching 10 points. Yet, this seemingly weakling had taken down so many pirates, including a pirate captain with a 69 million bounty. This was simply outrageous. But this also indirectly proved the power of the Corona Type 18 rifle. Thinking about how she had ordered 500 rifles from Li Yan and would be among the first units in the Marine headquarters to be equipped with them, Mamausaji was still very excited, even though the price was outrageously high. Soon, Mamausaji finished recounting the second half of the battle. Basically, it was the exclusive stage for the 4 main members of the 18th branch. Almost everyone with a bounty was taken down by them. As for the casualties on the Navy's side, most of the 18th branch members suffered minor injuries, with only 2 Marines seriously wounded on Thor's side. However, the G8 branch fared much worse. 10 members participated in the final attack, but 4 were killed, and all except Drake were seriously injured. It was simply that their strength was far inferior to that of the 18th branch's Marines. Let me read you the orders that just came from headquarters. From today onwards, the 18th branch of the East Blue is officially upgraded to a second-class branch. Base Commander Li Yan is awarded the rank of Rear Admiral and appointed Governor General of the East Blue, overseeing all matters concerning the 18 naval branches in the East Blue. Nezuko is promoted to Commodore, Luffy to Captain, Usopp and Buggy to Lieutenant Commander, and Larnus to Lieutenant Commander. For the promotions of the rest, please refer to the specific documents. At the same time, Rear Admiral Li Yan is ordered to lead the 18th branch's Marines to Marineford in 10 days to attend the awarding ceremony. How about that? If I hadn't put you in command, your military merits wouldn't have been enough to be promoted to Rear Admiral, let alone directly to a second-class branch. How are you going to repay your older sister? A malicious smile once again appeared on Mamausaji's face. Chapter 86 Reorganize the language. Looking at Mamausaji, who was smiling at him, Li Yan's mind raced with alarm bells. This woman, she's definitely up to something again. However, Mamausaji was right about one thing: without her handing over command to him, his military merits wouldn't be enough for promotion to Major General, nor would they be sufficient for the 18th branch to meet the requirements for a second-class branch. Oh well, he owed her a favor anyway. As long as it wasn't too outrageous, he'd accept it. Speak, what do you want? Help me install a gravity training room on my warship. Impossible. Without even thinking, Li Yan firmly refused. He was joking. Some things could be exposed, but some couldn't. A gravity training room, something beyond the normal technological realm of the pirate world, if exposed to outsiders, the trouble he'd face later would be immense. However, after Li Yan's refusal, Momausaji didn't react much, seemingly expecting this outcome. Then give your 18th branch priority access to new weapons. Priority access to new weapons? That wasn't impossible. After all, he planned to keep guns and cannons public anyway. Furthermore, regarding new weapons, the next ones should be the machine guns, assault rifles, and sniper rifles that Levin is currently researching, followed by rifled cannons. Equipping Momausaji with these things first isn't a big problem, especially since she'll be entirely under his control in 9 months. This is simply arming his subordinates in advance. Okay, I agree. 3 days later. If it weren't for Momausaji watching over him, Li Yan would have already gotten out of bed and moved around. Lying in bed these past few days has really been suffocating him. After all, since arriving at the 18th branch, he hasn't stopped training for a single day, and suddenly lying in bed for 3 days has really made him feel uncomfortable all over. There are still 7 days until the headquarters commissioning ceremony, and in these 7 days, Li Yan plans to do something. And the first thing to do is to go to Water 7 and recruit some boatmen to bring back to the 18th branch. What? You're going to Water 7 now? Are you fully recovered? Vice Admiral Jian, I'm not going to war. I'm just going to find boatmen for the G8 branch. Besides, I'm about 70–80% recovered. Even if I were to fight, it wouldn't be a big problem. Seeing Momausaji's exaggerated expression as she prepared to check his body, Li Yan sighed helplessly and replied. He wondered what was wrong with this woman lately, keeping such a close eye on him. Could it be that after calling herself older sister a few times, she actually started treating him like a younger brother? Alright, it's been a long time since I've been to Water 7. Consider it a vacation with you. Momausaji said after staring at Li Yan for a moment. Okay, if you want a vacation, then go ahead. As long as I get to Water 7, that's all that matters. It takes a day to get from the G8 branch to Water 7, and then 3 days to get from Water 7 to Marineford. That means he has about 3 days to find boatmen, which is more than enough time. After Momausaji agreed, Li Yan began to consider his options. However, finding skilled shipwrights there won't be easy. How so? Intrigued, Li Yan knew it was still a year before the main story began, and some information wasn't in the original work. Water 7 originally had 7 shipyards, and all the skilled shipwrights were snapped up by these 7 factories. But a little over a year ago, the current mayor of Water 7, S-Bag, annexed all the shipyards and established a Galera company. S-Bag is extremely prestigious in Water 7 and is known as a genius shipbuilder. Almost all the shipwrights idolize him. So, all the skilled shipwrights were already concentrated at the Galera company, and with the idle effect, poaching them will be very difficult. That's it? Li Yan was somewhat disappointed after hearing Momausaji's explanation. He had hoped for some information not in the original work. As for these matters, being familiar with the One Piece storyline, he naturally knew them. However, what Momausaji said next surprised Li Yan. Let me tell you something else, keep it to yourself, don't reveal it to anyone. According to information from Churu, about 3 years ago, several members of the CP organization infiltrated Water 7, and they're still there today. Although we don't know their purpose, it seems they're targeting Espargo. So you absolutely mustn't cause any trouble. Although the Navy isn't afraid of the CP organization, they're directly under Mary Gia's, which will be troublesome. Momausaji said earnestly. After all, infiltrating for so many years is definitely not a small mission. If Li Yan causes trouble and disrupts their operation, things will become much more complicated. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. It's just CP9, right? Who are they, what positions are they infiltrating, and what missions are they carrying out? Who knows better than me? However, Li Yan was quite surprised that the Navy had discovered this so early. Vice Admiral Churu's Naval Intelligence Department was indeed extremely capable. And Momausaji's willingness to tell him this showed her immense trust in him. As for what to do then, Li Yan already had a plan in mind. He would use his familiarity with the One Piece world's plot to negotiate a deal with S-Bag. He was confident S-Bag wouldn't refuse the deal. The following afternoon, Mamousaji's super warship had already docked at the port of Water 7. Even though he had seen Water 7 in his previous life, it was still just a manga and far less impressive than the real environment he was seeing now. In his previous life, this would definitely be called a city of miracles. The entire city was like a colossal and complex fountain, and this fountain was formed naturally. Water 7 was simply man-made, with the falling water constantly channeled outside the city through various mechanisms and channels. Without actually standing in front of this city, one could never truly appreciate its awe. Let's go. I'll go rent a blue first. After disembarking from the warship, Mamousaji took the initiative to become a tour guide, and judging from her expression, she seemed to be in a particularly good mood. A few minutes later, the two arrived at the blue rental point near Water 7. After all, it wasn't a rare item in Water 7, and the rental fee was very cheap. A blue that could carry a two-person boat only cost 1,000 berries to rent, and there was no time limit. Shall we take a good look around and relax? Mamousaji, sitting in the back, asked after Blue carried them off. For some reason, Li Yan even felt a hint of anticipation in her voice. Well, maybe it was just his imagination. No, let's go straight to Dock 1 to take care of business with Espargo. Shaking his head, he dismissed the illusion and said. However, as soon as Li Yan said this, the surrounding temperature seemed to drop several degrees instantly, and even the hairs on the back of his head stood on end, as if a terrifying prehistoric beast was staring intently at him from behind. I'll give you one more chance, rephrase your words. Chapter 87 Deliberate Exposure. Late at night, when most people were asleep and even the bars were closed, several dark figures moved swiftly across the rooftops at a speed beyond human perception, eventually entering a closed bar. Bruno, what's this about the important intelligence you mentioned? A man in a black suit asked a bar owner directly after entering a private booth. Strangely, he didn't open his mouth while speaking. Instead, a pigeon perched on his shoulder kept opening its beak, as if the pigeon itself was speaking. Mamousa is here. Huh? A Marine Admiral? Yes, it's her, and Li Yan is with her. Hearing this, Lucci was somewhat confused. Who was Li Yan? Never heard of him. After all, they had been infiltrating this place for years, and unless absolutely necessary, they might not even meet once every month or two. Therefore, Lucci was actually quite isolated from outside information. But Bruno was different. He was disguised as the bar owner, and with so many people coming and going, he naturally had access to more information. Li Yan, 22 years old, was once a genius of the Marine headquarters, hailed as a seed for the next Marine Admiral. However, a year ago, for unknown reasons, he suddenly lost all his power. Ultimately, at the request of Li Yan's teacher, Admiral Zephyr, Fleet Admiral Sengoku transferred him to the 18th branch of the East Blue, essentially to let him retire there. But after Li Yan went to the East Blue, his strength slowly began to recover, and he accomplished many significant feats. He discovered and dealt with the Arlong pirates and the 16th branch of the East Blue, as well as the undisclosed matters concerning the 153rd branch and Kiro. A few days ago, Li Yan led over 100 Marines, using Vice Admiral Mamousaji's warship, across the Calm Belt and arrived at Mock Town, where he annihilated all the pirates. Meanwhile, after learning that bloodthirsty Taros had colluded with 26 other pirate crews to launch a surprise attack on the G8 branch while Admiral Akainu was conscripting them to the G1 branch, Li Yan and Vice Admiral Mamousaji secretly infiltrated a branch and ultimately defeated all of these pirate crews. Bloodthirsty Taros, with a bounty of 215 million berries, was killed single-handedly by Li Yan. And 3 days ago, according to news from the Navy, Li Yan has been promoted to Rear Admiral and simultaneously appointed Governor General of the East Blue. Khalifa, true to her role as CP9's intelligence chief, expertly adjusted her glasses and began recounting the events with remarkable familiarity. Hearing this, Lucci frowned slightly. This Marine named Li Yan was indeed impressive, but what did this have to do with his mission? Was it necessary to urgently summon everyone here? Last night, Lieutenant General Mamousaji and Major General Li Yan came to the bar, and I overheard part of their conversation. Their destination is Espagu, and they said they would be looking for him tomorrow. Are you sure you heard correctly? Yes, I'm sure. I was afraid they would interfere with our mission, so I came to find you as soon as the bar closed. Looking at Bruno, Lucci asked seriously, and Bruno nodded in confirmation. Anything involving Espagu was a matter of utmost importance to them, and they couldn't afford to be careless. Lucci, Should we make contact with them? No, unless absolutely necessary. It's best not to expose ourselves. Since they're going to see Espagu tomorrow, that's perfect. Khalifa can find out what their purpose is. If it doesn't affect our mission, we don't need to worry about it, but if it conflicts with our mission, we'll contact them and warn them. After hearing Kaku's question, Lucci pondered for a moment before speaking. Meanwhile, in a hotel, Lian lay sprawled on the bed in a classic starfish position. Sure enough, no matter the world, women are always terrifying when they go shopping. They don't even have any consideration for a sick person like me. This whole day has been more tiring than a battle. But Bruno really does look like a bar owner. You can't tell he's faking it. CP9 people do have some skills. I bet Lucci and the others are already at the bar by now, and they've learned from Bruno about their plans to find S-Bag with Gian, right? Sigh, in the end, it's just that their strength is too weak. Otherwise, they wouldn't need to go through all this trouble. Knock knock knock. Just as Li Yan was lying in bed thinking about tomorrow's plans, there was a sudden knock on the door. Vice Admiral Gian, is something wrong so late? Opening the door, Li Yan was surprised to find it was Momousaji. Come in and we'll talk. Without waiting for Li Yan's reaction, Momousaji went inside. Li Yan sighed slightly and closed the door, muttering to himself, what's this woman up to now? Li Yan, isn't that bar owner from the intelligence agency? And you deliberately let him overhear that we're going to see Espargo tomorrow, right? As soon as Li Yan closed the door, Momousaji's direct question stunned him. Do you know what I'm responsible for in the Navy? No. Mostly intelligence related, and the missions I carry out are mostly classified Navy tasks, many of which are related to Mary G's. Therefore, I've met quite a few people from the CP organization. Hearing this, Li Yan suddenly remembered. Even in the original work, Momousaji's missions weren't routine, like going to find the Golden Emperor, and the original work didn't even reveal why she went to see the Golden Emperor. Plus, she was always directly under the Navy General Staff, so her work was naturally mostly related to intelligence. A miscalculation. I want to know what you're planning to do in Water 7? Staring at Li Yan for a full minute, Momousaji finally spoke. Strangely, Momousaji's expression was different from what Li Yan had expected. There was no anger, no doubt, and instead, a hint of worry. Could it be that she wasn't angry because he had kept it from her, but rather afraid he would cause trouble? Thinking this, Li Yan's gaze towards Momousaji became even more peculiar. Did this woman really treat him like a younger brother? Okay, you're right. I did deliberately let him hear that we're going to see S-Bag tomorrow. Why? Because S-Bag is their long-term target, and I'm afraid of trouble, so I told them clearly that I'd be going to see S-Bag tomorrow. That way, they'll definitely have someone monitor my meeting with S-Bag, and then they can rest assured, right? Okay, I can accept your explanation, but there's one problem. How did you know their target is S-Bag? This question is really hard to answer. With a pained expression, Li Yan didn't know what to say for a moment. Fine, if you don't want to talk about it, then don't. But you need to promise me you won't do anything to harm the Navy. Don't worry about that. In the future, I will only make the Navy stronger, able to uphold true justice, and I will not do anything to harm it. That's right, Li Yan never intended to betray the Navy, but he also never intended to simply accept all of the Navy's current ideologies. What he needed was a Navy that could truly uphold justice, not one that judged others based on their status. If ultimately the Navy headquarters' servility towards the Celestial Dragons couldn't be changed, then let the 18th branch take up the banner of justice. Chapter 88 The Deal. At the entrance of the Carrera Corporation in Water 7, Lieutenant General Momousaji said, the mayor is in his office. Please follow me. Dressed in office lady attire and holding a folder, Khalifa spoke politely but her expression remained blank. Nodding, Momousaji and Li Yan followed, quickly arriving at S-Bag's office on the second floor. Lieutenant General Momousaji, hello. May I ask why you've come to see me? Hello, Mr. S-Bag, actually, it's him who's looking for you, not me. And this is? This is Major General Li Yan, recently appointed governor of the East Blue by Fleet Admiral Sengoku. Momousaji introduced him directly upon S-Bag's inquiry. That's truly astonishing. To hold such a high position at such a young age, Major General Li Yan is indeed a young talent. Mr. S-Bag, you're too kind. I've come today to discuss a collaboration with the Carrera Corporation. Li Yan shook hands with S-Bag and spoke directly, while Khalifa, who was serving tea, narrowed her eyes slightly. I wonder what kind of cooperation Rear Admiral Li Yan is referring to? It's like this. I hope the Carrera Company will open a branch on the East Coast. As for the land and security, I'll handle everything. What does Mr. Espargo think? This. Hearing this, Espargo hesitated. Mr. Espargo, if you have any concerns, please speak frankly. In the East Blue, I can basically solve everything for you. It's like this. Since Rear Admiral Li Yan has come to our Carrera Company, you should know something about us. Our shipwrights are the best in the world, and the ships they build are also the best, allowing buyers to sail safely on the Grand Line. But the East Blue. Okay, Li Yan understood. This guy meant that the East Blue doesn't have the harsh and unpredictable climate of the Grand Line, so there's no need for such high-quality ships. Therefore, even if the Carrera Company opened a branch in the East Blue, no one would buy them. To give an example, a large sailing ship might cost only 30 to 40 million berries to build in an ordinary shipyard in the East China Sea, but if Carrera were to build it, it would cost at least 60 to 70 million berries, almost double the price. After all, they use the world's best shipbuilders. The quality of a ship built from the same blueprints is several orders of magnitude superior to those from smaller shipyards. The problem is, such high-quality ships are unnecessary in the East China Sea, so naturally, no one would be willing to spend almost twice the money to buy them. So, what's the point of Carrera building a branch on the high seas? What if I sign an agreement with Carrera, and all the warships of the East China Sea naval branches are built by Carrera? This. Espargo had to admit that the proposal was somewhat tempting, but it wasn't enough. Alright, it seems I still can't persuade Mr. Espargo. How about adding this? Li Yan was prepared for Espargo's rejection. He immediately took out a stack of blueprints from a cabinet, placed them on his desk, and pushed them in front of Espargo. When Espargo saw the contents of the top blueprint, his eyes widened. It was a magnificent shipyard, even containing many large pieces of equipment he didn't recognize. It was definitely larger and more advanced than Marella Company's #1 dock. This was natural. After all, Li Yan had spent 1 million merit points to exchange for the blueprints of a super-large shipyard from the system. This shipyard even had 350,000-ton docks. I am the shipyard I plan to build next to the 18th branch, specifically to serve all the naval branches in the East China Sea. And I will lease this shipyard to the Carrera Company free of charge. For the Carrera Company, they only need to send a corresponding number of shipbuilders to the East China Sea to obtain an advanced shipyard, and at the same time, secure all the warship orders for the entire East China Sea Navy. I think Mr. Espargo won't lose out on this deal, will he? This. As a businessman, Espargo admitted that this deal was indeed profitable, even a huge win. They'd give you the land, fund the construction of the shipyard, and even guarantee your order volume. It was practically a windfall. However, Espargo didn't believe in such a windfall. Li Yan must have other motives for paying such a high price. Excuse me, Vice Admiral Jian, could I speak with Mr. Espargo alone for a while? Sure. Seeing Espargo still hesitating, Li Yan had no choice but to play his trump card. Mamousaji didn't ask any further questions and simply stood up and walked out of the office. Although Khalifa didn't want to go out, seeing Mamousaji's gaze, she sighed inwardly and followed her out. Li Yan wasn't afraid of Khalifa eavesdropping outside the door. With Mamousaji's mastery of observation haki, she was destined to have no chance. Alright, now it's just the two of us, so I'll get straight to the point. I need the best shipwrights to build high-quality warships for my East Blue Navy. If Mr. Espargo agrees, in exchange, I can tell you a secret. Who are the CP organization members who have been infiltrating your ranks to investigate the whereabouts of the Pluton blueprints? Don't be nervous. I have no interest in ancient weapons, and I already know the whereabouts of the Pluton blueprints. They're on Frankie's person. I even know that Frankie modified his body, and there's a hidden compartment in his abdomen where the blueprints are hidden. Hearing this, Espargo's face changed color. Who is this guy? How did he even know where Frankie hid the blueprints? What exactly is your purpose? Purpose? Well, like I said, I simply want to find a group of excellent shipwrights to build warships for my East China Sea Navy, nothing more. Just that simple? Yes, that's simple. Mr. Espargo only needs to send a team of shipwrights to the East China Sea to open a branch. What could he possibly lose? Well, Espargo couldn't refute that. Indeed, sending just a few dozen shipwrights to establish a branch of the Carrera Company was nothing to him. Add to that the conditions Li Yan offered, and it was practically a winning proposition. Besides, this guy not only knew the Pluton blueprints were with Frankie, but he even knew where Frankie had hidden them. What leverage did he have to refuse? Alright, I agree. I'll send a foreman with 30 shipwrights to report to you at the East Blue 18th branch. So, can you tell me now? Of course. There are 4 CP9 members in Water 7, Foreman Rob Lucci, Kaku, bar owner Bruno, and your secretary Khalifa. What? Esbag was extremely shocked. He knew Bruno, the owner of the most successful bar in Water 7, but even so, he could accept that he was a CP9 member. The other 3, however, were a different story. Rob Lucci and Kaku had both joined Carrera over 3 years ago, and were among his most favored candidates in the referendum. Khalifa, however, although he found it hard to accept, he knew that Li Yan had no reason to deceive him on this matter. Alright, now that things are settled, I'll take my leave. Mr. Esbag can send someone to my 18th branch in a month. I'll have everything arranged. Oh, by the way, to avoid unnecessary trouble, please don't reveal that you already know these people's identities in the short term. After all, I don't want to be targeted right now. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 The 4 C's are the root cause. Outside the office door, Khalifa appeared calm on the surface, but inwardly she was incredibly anxious. She'd brought herself out to get to the crucial point. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem. After all, she was from the intelligence organization CP9, and eavesdropping through the crack in the door was a piece of cake. But the key issue is that Momousaji stood there like a gatekeeper, giving her no chance at all. Just then, the office door opened, and Li Yan walked out with a smug look on his face, while Esbag remained seated in his seat, his face grim. Late at night, the same bar, the same cubicle. That's how it is. After Khalifa recounted the events of the day in detail, Lucci frowned slightly. Let Carrera Company establish a branch in the East Blue? In exchange, Li Yan promised to give all the warship orders for the East Blue branches to Carrera Company? And there was also a secret conversation between the two of them, lasting about 3 minutes? The first 2 points, while surprising to Lucci, weren't major issues, since Li Yan, as the governor of the East Blue, had the authority to do so. Moreover, judging from Li Yan's recent actions, he has both the ability and the desire to frequently enter the Grand Line to train new recruits and gain military merits. However, the only obstacle to doing so is a warship capable of crossing the calm belt and sailing the Grand Line for extended periods. Therefore, it's not surprising that he plotted against the shipwrights of the Carrera Company to overcome this obstacle. However, those 3 minutes of secret conversation were something Lucci couldn't ignore. As an excellent intelligence agent, one should be fully aware of the target's every move, but now there was a 3-minute uncontrollable gap, which was unacceptable to Lucci. Khalifa, describe in detail their expressions and what they said after their secret conversation, without omitting anything. Yes, after their conversation ended, Li Yan appeared smug, while Esbag was angry and gloomy. That's interesting. Did Esbag say anything afterward? Lucci continued to ask. Yes, I asked him indirectly if Li Yan had done anything, and Esbag, in his anger, revealed some information. Although he didn't go into great detail, I understand the general situation. Li Yan, relying on his teacher being Zephyr and his connections with Garp, Momousaji, Kizaru, and other core high-ranking members of the Marine headquarters, threatened Esbag, saying that if he didn't agree, he would have them push forward some plans targeting the Galera Company. After all, nearly half of their orders come from pirates. If the Marines want to deal with the Galera, no one else can really say anything. Of course, Esbag deliberately let this slip to Khalifa, but it's quite reasonable and explains why Li Yan had a secret meeting with Esbag about this matter. After all, it's not honorable, is it? Is that so? Lucci, should we report this to Marine headquarters? No need. If this is the case, it won't affect our mission. Let's not create unnecessary trouble. Hearing Bruno's question, Lucci shook his head and replied. In his mind, the mission comes first, and other issues shouldn't be bothered with unless they affect the mission. But Lucci, what if Espargo assigns me or you to lead the team to the East Blue? It's alright, Khalifa can guide Espargo appropriately, it shouldn't be a big problem, Although Li Yan had 3 days to spare, he didn't stay long in Water 7. Nor did he contact Frankie. Instead, he returned to the warship with Mimausaji the same day and left. For him now, he didn't want too much interaction with CP9. After all, the more contact, the easier it would be to expose something. 3 days later. Marine Headquarters, Marineford. When Li Yan stepped off the warship, he found Zephyr already waiting there. Li Yan had considerable respect for this current head instructor of the Marine Headquarters. In fact, Zephyr was the Marine he respected most when watching One Piece in his previous life, not to mention the help Zephyr had given him after arriving in this world, and how the old man had even swallowed his pride to ask Sengoku for help when he lost his power. Therefore, in this world, Li Yan even regarded Zephyr as his father. Honestly, according to the original story, Zephyr was definitely the person who contributed the most to the Navy, but unfortunately, he was forced to take an extreme path at the end of his life. But this time is different. With me here, I will never let Zephyr experience such a painful old age again. Teacher. You brat, if it weren't for your commissioning ceremony, you wouldn't have come back to see me, would you? No way. Teacher, you know that if it weren't for Vice Admiral Jian's help this time, I wouldn't have been able to enter the Grand Line. Well, what Li Yan said was true. For the Navy of the East Blue, apart from Logatown, which has a prison ship that can cross the Com Belt, other warships really can't enter the Com Belt unless they enter the Grand Line through Reverse Mountain. But if they go in like that, they can't return to the East Blue. Let's not talk about that for now. The commissioning ceremony is in 2 days. Go report to Sengoku first, and then get your ass to the elite training camp. I'll give you a good retraining in these 2 days. Hearing this, Li Yan smiled helplessly, but did not refuse. Besides, I originally planned to visit the old man's place anyway, since I'm currently lacking a capable adjutant, and the old man has someone quite suitable, doesn't he? A little over 10 minutes later, Marine Headquarters, Fleet Admiral's office. To be honest, Li Yan didn't have a good impression of Sengoku, especially with a huge banner hanging on the office wall, Absolute Justice. Looking at those 5 words, Li Yan even felt it was a mockery. Li Yan, what do you think of the Four Seas? The Four Seas? An incredibly important place, yet neglected by the Navy. Oh, how so? Hearing Li Yan's answer, Sengoku immediately became interested. It was true that the Four Seas were neglected by the Navy, but to say that the Four Seas were incredibly important was indeed a novel statement. First, for our world, the Grand Line is ultimately just a small area, while the Four Seas are more than 10 times larger. Second, the population of the Four Seas is incomparable to that of the Grand Line. If headquarters had conducted a survey of pirate birthplaces, they would have found that most pirates were born in the Four Seas. Therefore, as long as the Four Seas are stable, it would be an extremely effective blow to pirate groups. However, headquarters is currently neglecting the Four Seas too much, practically allowing pirates to thrive there and freely enter the Grand Line. Take the East Blue, for example. They've only established a branch in Logatown, the closest town to the Grand Line entrance. But what's the use? How many East Blue pirates can they prevent from entering the Grand Line? Li Yan said bluntly. Logatown is said to guard the key point between the East Blue and the Grand Line, but the question is, do pirates have to stop in Logatown to get to the Grand Line? Furthermore, given that Logatown is so close to the entrance to the Reverse Mountain in the East Blue, why not maintain a long-term military presence near the entrance? Simply staying within Logatown provides virtually no defensive advantage. For headquarters, this crucial position guarding the Grand Line is only managed by a third-class branch and a colonel. Who are they underestimating? With so many vice admirals at headquarters, even just 4 capable vice admirals stationed at each of the Four Seas guarding one entrance to Reverse Mountain would prevent 99% of pirates from entering the Grand Line. But what did headquarters do? They focused almost all their attention on the 4 emperors, completely neglecting the most fundamental aspect. As a result, for every powerful pirate they eliminated, 10 previously weaker pirates took the opportunity to grow stronger, ultimately leading to an ever-increasing number of pirates. Chapter 90 The East China Sea Thief Free Plan. Sengoku remained silent, pondering Li Yan's words. Since Roger's public execution, the world had entered the Great Pirate Era, and from that time onward, the Navy focused almost 99% of its attention on the Grand Line. This led to a phenomenon where the Four Seas were gradually forgotten by the Navy. Many Marines at headquarters rarely even thought of them, yet they forgot, The four seas comprised 90% of the world's population and were the birthplace of most pirates. Take this generation of supernovas, for example, with one exception, the rest came from the four seas. That speaks volumes. Li Yan, what are you planning to do? Thinking this, Sengoku looked up at Li Yan and asked seriously. First, I will assess all branch base commanders. Anyone who fails to meet the requirements will be replaced. Take the case of the 16th branch, for example. Rat's combat strength is even inferior to an ordinary marine, and his command ability is non-existent. How he obtained the rank of colonel and even became the 16th branch base commander is a matter I won't discuss now, but I don't believe he'll be the only exception in the East Blue. Second, I will establish a new recruit training system similar to headquarters, and create a super large composite training camp at the 18th branch. All new recruits from the branches must first be sent to the training camp to complete 3 months of rigorous training and pass the assessment before being sent back to their original branch to begin service. Those who fail will be discharged. And those Marines already serving will also be sent here in batches to re-participate in training and assessment. Those who cannot complete all training and fail the final assessment will be forcibly discharged. In the past, branches recruited new recruits and trained them themselves. The lack of professional instructors resulted in poor training effectiveness, not to mention the existence of countless nepotism cases. Now that I've become the Governor General of the East Blue, I won't allow this to happen again. I will ensure that every Marine in the East Blue is a qualified Marine, and that any parasites will not have fertile ground to grow from the very beginning. Third, therefore, I will create several pirate guerrilla teams. They have no fixed bases, no fixed territories, and no fixed targets. All pirates in the East Blue are their targets. Wherever there is news of pirates appearing, they will go. Fourth, create a complete oversight system. Li Yan went on and on for a full half-hour before finally finishing. Among these plans was naturally the plan to guard the entrance to the Grand Line, Reverse Mountain. To accomplish this plan, Li Yan even proposed to Sengoku that Loga Town be incorporated into his management system. Sengoku was also considering the effects of implementing Li Yan's plans, and ultimately, 4 words came to mind. The East Blue is now devoid of pirates. Yes, the East Blue, where pirates were never particularly strong to begin with, has had its entrance to the Grand Line completely sealed off. Furthermore, with its living space drastically compressed, the inevitable outcome is self-evident. After all, in this great pirate era, most people set sail to become pirates to fulfill Roger's words, to reach One Piece. But to achieve this dream, they had to enter the Grand Line. However, with the entrance to the Grand Line sealed off, and the East Blue's navy becoming entirely elite, coupled with measures like pirate guerrilla warfare, their living space was significantly reduced. Over time, a new logic was instilled in everyone in the East Blue: when being a pirate is a dead end, and entering the Grand Line is a pipe dream, how many people would still set sail to become pirates? Don't say that most pirates are forced into it by nobles, that they only become pirates because they can't survive. That's utter nonsense. While Li Yan doesn't deny that such a situation exists, it's definitely not the majority. Look at the named pirates in the original work. Most of them set sail for their own ambitions, even Luffy is no exception. Those who were truly forced into becoming pirates by the pressure from nobles and celestial dragons were ultimately a minority, and a very small minority at that. As for the issue of nobles and celestial dragons, Li Yan would deal with it sooner or later, but not now. Loga Town can be brought under your jurisdiction, but within a year, you must show me significant results. After a long silence, Sengoku finally spoke. Although he was well aware of the immense changes Li Yan's plans would bring to the East Blue once fully implemented, he dared not directly roll them out across all 4 seas. Instead, he could only conduct a pilot program in the East Blue first. After all, a major problem would arise: the nations and nobles of the East Blue. Given the current situation across the 4 seas, although there were many pirates, it wouldn't affect the interests of those kingdoms and nobles. These pirates wouldn't stay in the 4 seas for long. After setting sail and gathering their crews, they would head towards the Grand Line. For these kingdoms, this actually sent away unstable elements, thus ensuring their continued stability and prosperity. However, once the gateways from the 4 seas to the Grand Line are sealed off, as Li Yan has done, while this might eventually reduce the number of pirates from the 4 seas, in the short term, these pirates unable to enter the Grand Line will wreak havoc throughout the seas. Such an outcome would be unacceptable to short-sighted nobles. Therefore, during the implementation of this plan, the kingdoms and nobles within the four seas will inevitably cause trouble, even resorting to pressure on the navy from Marigies. After all, these kingdoms are not the poor nations of the Grand Line. Just look at the Gold Kingdom in the East Blue, they are incredibly wealthy. For Marigies, they are the main source of celestial wealth. For the celestial dragons, they are the guarantee of their luxurious lifestyles. In short, it will be quite troublesome. Therefore, even though Sengoku knew the benefits, he dared not implement it comprehensively across the four seas. He could only have Li Yan conduct a pilot program in the East Blue first. Only after success could the results in the East Blue be used as an example to persuade the kingdoms of the other three seas to agree to this strategy. Conversely, if the implementation in the East Blue is thwarted by too much resistance, then there's no point in talking about the other three seas. Fleet Admiral, I know what you're worried about, but these things have to be done. No pirates in the East Blue is just the beginning. If we can't even do that, how can we talk about ending the Great Pirate Era? Ending the Great Pirate Era started by Roger. How familiar that phrase was. He himself had once had such ambition, but now. Hearing Li Yan's words, Sengoku sighed slightly. The once pure-hearted him, after becoming Fleet Admiral, had become increasingly hesitant, even gradually becoming subservient to Marigies, no matter how unreasonable their demands. Perhaps it was time to make some changes. Li Yan, I can give you full support. Within a year, headquarters will withstand all pressure from all sides, but within a year, you must show everyone significant results. Only then can I silence those kingdom nobles and even Marigies. Do you understand? Having made his decision, Sengoku spoke solemnly. Fleet Admiral, rest assured, 1 year is enough. Chapter 91. Who did I just kill? The next day, early morning. Marine Headquarters, Elite Training Camp. Have you heard? Senior brother Li Yan came back yesterday. A lot of people saw him. No way, wasn't senior brother Li Yan exiled to a branch in the East Blue after losing his powers for some unknown reason? Hey, don't you guys read the newspapers? It's been all over the place these past few days. Senior brother Li Yan and Vice Admiral Mamausaji wiped out 27 pirate crews at the G8 branch, including the Talus pirates. Yes, that's the Talus pirates, and senior brother Li Yan killed them himself. Hiss, so senior brother Li Yan's strength has recovered? Of course. That's a pirate with a bounty of 215 million. If his strength hadn't recovered. Boom. At the entrance of the training camp, just as a group of Marine cadets were whispering and preparing to enter, a muffled loud noise suddenly came from within, accompanied by a shockwave that almost knocked the unprepared cadets to the ground. You brat, your swordsmanship, while not quite at your former level, has become much more refined. Zephyr praised Li Yan after his black mechanical arm, enveloped in armament haki, blocked his attack. Zephyr had never been a fan of flashy techniques, but Li Yan's swordsmanship was completely different now, devoid of any frills, instead possessing a simple yet highly refined style. This pleased Zephyr greatly. However, your physical skills are still far from sufficient. I remember telling you, whether you choose the path of devil fruits or the path of swordsmanship, physical skills will always be your foundation. Shave. Armament haki, black arm. Boom. Before he could even react, Li Yan was blasted more than 20 meters away, crashing to the ground and kicking up a cloud of dust. See that, brat? If your physical skills aren't up to par, even the best swordsmanship is useless. Old man, don't go easy on me. I'm still recovering from an injury. Leah said with a wry smile as she got up. Even though Zephyr's strength had declined considerably due to his age and the loss of his right arm, he still possessed the strength of an admiral candidate. No, it would be more accurate to say he was somewhere between an admiral candidate and an admiral. Moreover, his strength came entirely from physical skills. When Zephyr got serious, his shave technique was naturally difficult for Li Yan, who hadn't yet awakened his observation haki, to react to. However, being thrashed by Zephyr for an hour wasn't without its rewards. Looking at his attribute panel, where his observation haki had reached 99% and his armament haki 92%, Li Yan's fighting spirit soared. Come on, let's continue. Soon, the two clashed again. Meanwhile, the trainees standing at the training camp entrance stared in disbelief at the nearly destroyed training ground. They looked at the slash marks on the ground, the large craters resembling cannon fire, and the scattered supplies and equipment. Everyone's lips twitched uncontrollably. Are we still going in for our routine morning training? Do you want to die? No. Then why are you asking? Hearing one Marine's question, another Marine glared at him and retorted. The battle scenes inside were simply too exaggerated for them. Don't be fooled by the fact that the 3 admirals and some well-known pirate commanders had all come from the elite training camp. Those were just exceptions. Generally speaking, unless there's a prodigy among the graduates, the elite training camp usually produces at most junior naval officers, with a strength value of around 100 or 200 at best. That's based on the Navy's standard strength value calculation method. According to the system's algorithm, 100 would be considered very good. In reality, most trainees graduating from the elite training camp only learn 1 or 2 techniques, let alone master either type of haki. Take Smoker, for example. He was considered quite prodigy in his class, but what happened in the end? He only reached the strength of a colonel, and he didn't awaken either type of haki. Therefore, the fight between Zephyr and Li Yan was indeed beyond their capabilities. The speed, too fast for the eyes to follow, and the astonishing destructive power left them utterly shocked. What are you doing? Just then, a pleasant voice rang out from behind some of the Marine cadets in the training camp. Ah, Senior Sister Anne. Didn't you see it's time? Aren't you going to do your morning practice? This. Oh my God, we want to go in too, but we're too scared. We feel like we might get accidentally killed. Get out of the way. Seeing the reaction of the group of students, Anne realized that something must have happened in the training camp. She shouted and walked towards the gate. That bastard, he still knows to come back. Does he know how much the teacher worried about him? And when he left, he didn't even say goodbye to any of us. Bastard. As soon as she arrived at the gate, Anne saw the 2 fighting and recognized the other person besides Zephyr. She was immediately furious. Anne knew about Li Yan's exile to the East Sea a few months ago. The key point was that when this guy left the headquarters, he didn't say goodbye to any of them. He just left like that. She, Bins, and Xiuzuo had worried about him for so long, and this guy just suddenly disappeared without even saying goodbye. Every time she thought about these things, Anne felt a surge of anger and immediately rushed into the training ground. Senior Sister Anne, no. You'll die. Yet, wait until it's over before going in. Although a group of students desperately tried to dissuade her, Anne seemed not to hear them and still went in. Even her 2 short blades, which she used as weapons, were already in her hands. Li Yan, who was completely absorbed in the battle, felt a sense of danger from his right after Zephyr disappeared with a single slash. His body reacted instinctively, and he turned around and instinctively raised his storm fang for defense. Clang clang. Not only did he block it, but he also swung his storm fang horizontally, sending a black and white streak of light flying. It wasn't until he blasted his opponent far away, even crashing into a room with training equipment dozens of meters away, that Li Yan realized something was wrong. He had just made a casual slash. How did he blast the old man so far? Completely bewildered, Li Yan suddenly felt a hand on his shoulder. Turning around, he saw it was Zephyr, and in Zephyr's eyes, Li Yan read a hint of sympathy. Then, like a robot, he slowly turned his head to look at the equipment room shrouded in smoke and dust. Who had he just killed? Chapter 92. Returning to the 18th branch. Half of the equipment room had collapsed, billowing smoke and dust obscuring the view. Thinking back, when he parried the attack, it seemed to have been 2 short swords. His eyes widened in shock. Had he accidentally cut her? Li Yan was instantly terrified and turned to run, but it was too late. A figure slowly emerged from the smoke and dust. Sigh, I'll give you a break this morning, we'll continue this afternoon. Zephyr patted Li Yan's shoulder lightly, sighed, and left with those words before turning and walking out of the training camp without looking back. Soon, chilling screams echoed from the training camp, finally subsiding an hour later. It was a heart-wrenching sound. Junior Sister, you're exhausted, you should have vented enough, right? Yes, Senior Sister. Inside the elite training camp, Anne, too tired to move, glared at Li Yan, who was also sitting on the ground panting, and then corrected him. That won't do. You clearly lost that bet, and now you have to call me senior brother. You have the nerve to say that? If you hadn't used those underhanded methods, would I have lost? No matter what method I used, a win is a win, and a loss is a loss. I can't be bothered with you. Turning her head away haughtily, Anne indicated she didn't want to talk to this guy anymore. Originally, Li Yan thought Anne's haughty attitude would last at least 2 or 3 minutes, but unexpectedly, in less than 10 seconds, she turned her head back and spoke. How have you been these past few months? Not bad. I've been diligently cultivating every day, trying every possible way to recover my strength. It's just a pity I haven't been able to see my cute junior sister. Be serious. I'm very serious, so I'm planning to talk to Teacher Zifa and ask you to come back to the East China Sea with me and be my adjutant. Are you serious? And widened her beautiful eyes, looking at Li Yan with disbelief. Asking me to go to an East China Sea branch to be your adjutant? Are you sure you're not setting me up? And are you sure Teacher Zifa will agree to this? Clearly, Anne was unaware that Li Yan had been appointed governor of the East China Sea. In his mind, the 18th branch, where Li Yan belonged, was still the 5th-rank branch that was originally slated for abandonment, with hardly any Marines. Haven't you noticed all this time? Seeing Anne's expression, Li Yan could roughly guess what was going on, and then pointed to his shoulder and asked, Major General, what's going on with you? When her gaze fell on Li Yan's shoulder, especially the Major General's rank insignia, Anne was completely dumbfounded. Just a few months ago, he had to swallow his pride and beg Sengoku for the branch manager position, and now he was a Major General? You didn't bribe the fleet admiral, did you? What are you talking about? Covering his head, Li Yan was speechless for a moment, and could only slowly recount what had happened in the past few months since leaving headquarters. Of course, things that needed to be concealed still had to be concealed, such as the system, and the gravity training room, etc. Only after hearing all this did the girl finally react. That's right. If my strength hadn't recovered to a certain extent, how could I have fought against Professor Zeph, and even blasted him away with a single sword strike? So, you're the Governor General of the East Blue now? Yes, and the Fleet Admiral has agreed to bring Logatown under my jurisdiction. I bet Smoker's expression will be quite something when the order arrives, ha ha ha. Thinking of this, Li Yan couldn't help but laugh, eagerly anticipating the moment Smoker would salute him and call him sir. No, that won't do. I have to stay at headquarters to take care of Professor Zeph. It's alright, Pins and Shuzo are there. Besides, don't you want to personally deal with Weevil? What do you mean? Hearing Li Yan's words, Anne's expression immediately changed. Staying at Marine headquarters, you'll never be a match for Weevil, but going to my side will allow your strength to increase 5 or even 10 times. Although I can't tell you why now, you should know that I won't lie to you about this. Looking at Anne, Li Yan said earnestly. Staying at headquarters, Anne wouldn't even be able to fight Weevil, let alone, to put it bluntly, serve him. But going to my place would be different. A20X gravity training room, are you scared yet? Plus, with system support, there would only be more and more good things in the future, and it might even give Anne the opportunity to acquire stronger talents. Anne didn't answer immediately, her face filled with a conflicted expression. Li Yan knew she was struggling internally, so he didn't say anything more, just watched her. Until 3 minutes later, if I find out you're lying to me, I'll beat you up and go back to headquarters. No problem. Li Yan knew Anne had agreed. Honestly, if it weren't for Weevil, even if he and Anne were close, she probably wouldn't have agreed to leave Zephyr. As for the rest, as long as Zephyr nodded, there wouldn't be any problems, and Li Yan believed that Zephyr definitely wouldn't object in this matter. As for the result, it was just as Li Yan expected. That afternoon, after he told Zephyr about it, the latter agreed without hesitation. In reality, Zephyr felt he was the one holding Anne back. Anne could have had a much better path with her talent, but she insisted on staying in the training camp to take care of him. Now that Li Yan had persuaded her to become his adjutant in the East Blue, Zephyr naturally wouldn't object. On the contrary, he was happy to see it happen. 7 days later. East Blue, Branch 18. Momousaji was the one who brought Li Yan and the others back again. After all, she was still waiting to pick up the 500 Corona Type 18 rifles and 500,000 rounds of special ammunition she had been longing for. Of course, with money in hand, everything was negotiable. Under Momousaji's previous offensive of 300 million berries, Li Yan, as agreed, had already had Levin and the others prepare the goods. Once everything was checked and confirmed to be in order, Momousaji left satisfied. After all, she was a candidate for admiral, and there were other missions waiting for her. She couldn't stay with Li Yan forever. In the center of the island, on the second floor of the branch building, in Li Yan's office. Are you sure you want to do this? After hearing Li Yan's complete plan for the East China Sea without thieves for the first time, Anne was stunned, her eyes wide with disbelief as she asked. She knew that once this plan was implemented, putting everything else aside, at least 60% of the East China Sea Marines would likely be forced to retire due to their inability to complete training or pass the final assessment. As for the base commanders, if they all followed Li Yan's requirements, probably very few would remain. That's right, Fleet Admiral Sengoku has agreed. As for the issue of troop replenishment, don't worry, I can handle it. Alright, you're the governor, you decide. Anne sighed slightly, somewhat helplessly. She could see that Li Yan was determined to do this, and no one could change her mind. She just hoped it wouldn't cause any major chaos. Chapter 93 Still a Penniless Pauper. In the East China Sea, the Navy has a total of 20 branches, branches 1-18 under the East China Sea system, and 2 independent branches, 153 and Logatown. As for manpower, it's less than 5,000 men. This isn't just about one branch, but the entire East China Sea. After all, they are mostly 4th or 5th tier branches. Apart from Logatown, even the largest branch, 153, only has a little over 200 men. Looking at the data compiled by Anne, Li Yan couldn't help but sigh slightly. It really is quite weak. Not only is the quality lacking, but the quantity is equally poor. Putting down the data, Li Yan silently opened the system space and looked at the unused items. System, use those 800 random Marines, 150 elite Marines, and that research team specializing in chemistry, already used, but due to the large number of people, all personnel will arrive gradually over 10 days. Well, after all, it's nearly 1,000 Marines plus an entire research team. The arrival time has increased from 3 days to 10 days, which is normal. With this, Li Yan's forces reached over 1,100, giving him the confidence to properly reorganize the East China Sea Navy. Otherwise, as Anne had feared, the removal of too many Marines at once would leave the East China Sea branches without sufficient manpower. Having solved the personnel problem, the next step was construction and technology. Li Yan, who thought himself wealthy after his successful campaign on the Grand Line, found himself still penniless when it came to construction. First, there was the shipyard. He had already spent 1 million merit points to exchange for blueprints, and now, to build it, just constructing an artificial island of about 10 square kilometers near Corona Island would require 1 million merit points, plus another million for a large-scale integrated shipyard. Fortunately, he could use local materials. Even so, the entire project would cost 3 million merit points. If he didn't still have nearly 6 million merit points, he wouldn't have been able to afford it. It wasn't that they couldn't build it on Corona Island or other uninhabited islands nearby, but rather that they had to build an artificial island. The problem was that there were simply too few islands that met the construction requirements. Another issue is that even if the requirements were met, the nearest island was a full 50 nautical miles away, making it inconvenient for Li Yan to control. After all, this shipyard was extremely important to Li Yan's future plans, even arguably the core, and he had to keep it under his constant watch. Even if Corona Island itself was large enough, he couldn't very well take up 1/5 of the entire island just to build a shipyard. Therefore, Li Yan ultimately had to grit his teeth and choose the artificial island option. After finalizing the construction plan, Li Yan followed the system's prompts and selected a construction location about 200 meters east of Corona Island. There was a large area there where the sea depth was only about 10 meters, perfect for building an artificial island, connected to the main island by a bridge. Having finally established a large-scale integrated shipyard, Li Yan soon faced another headache, the training camp. The original plan was to create a comprehensive super training camp for all Marines in the East China Sea. Once this training camp is successfully built, it will be able to accommodate hundreds or even thousands of Marines for training simultaneously. This place can't be small. Looking through the system, a super training camp, including all the supporting equipment, costs 800,000 merit points for blueprints and 2.5 million merit points for construction and materials. If the system were to handle everything, the entire setup would cost 3.3 million merit points. After completing the shipyard, Li Yan only had about 2.8 million merit points left, which was far from enough. Fortunately, since the super training camp doesn't involve technology too far ahead of its time, it can be built by the pirates themselves, and the materials can be directly sourced from the pirate world. This greatly relieved Li Yan, Anyway, there are still more than 8 months left on the contract with a Roland company. He can just have Gross's construction team build it then. Free materials are free. As for materials, Li Yan isn't short of money. The spoils from the pirates, plus the 300 million berries for the 500 rifles ordered by Mamousaji, total over 1 billion berries. This doesn't even include the 3 billion berries annual allocation from headquarters. Accustomed to poverty, Li Yan was now at a loss as to how to spend this money. In this way, Li Yan only needed to cover the construction cost of the artificial island, which was worth 1 million merit points. As for the existing large training ground on the main island, Li Yan didn't plan to demolish it, but rather preserve it to be used as the East China Sea Elite Training Camp. The newly built super training camp would serve as a training ground for ordinary Marines. Regarding gravity training rooms, 110X and 120X room would remain in the Elite Training Camp, while the rest would be moved to the super training camp. Along with the construction of the training ground, the accommodation problem for a large number of Marines also needed to be solved, but this wasn't a problem at all. 3 large Marine dormitories would be built first, the blueprints were available, and no additional merit points were needed. As for the construction, Gross would handle it. As for the materials, Li Yan reiterated, "I'm not short of money." Alright, with the training camp and accommodation issues settled, the next step was the Chemical Research Institute. There was basically no need to consider it, it would continue to be built underground, adjacent to the Gun and Ship Research Institute. In the future, these increasingly numerous research institutes will form a super underground research cluster within the 18th branch, continuously providing Li Yan with cutting-edge technology. Looking at the last 1.8 million merit points in his hand, Li Yan finally turned his attention to the naval port section. After all, the 18th branch's naval port was currently too small. Take Teotu's warships, for example, they could only dock a few hundred meters away at sea each time, then transfer to smaller boats to reach the island. It was incredibly inconvenient. Looking at the naval port section in the construction module, at the super naval port plan that spanned a full 50 square kilometers and included an artificial secondary island, Li Yan could only silently shed tears of envy. He was simply too poor. 10 million merit points for the blueprints, plus 15 million merit points for construction costs and 18 million merit points for materials. It was too much to bear. Finally, after much deliberation, Li Yan had no choice but to choose the ordinary large naval port plan. It can simultaneously berth 3 super warships, 10 large warships, and dozens of medium and small warships, and also has 3 dedicated submarine berths, with all other basic supporting facilities readily available. The blueprints cost 800,000 merit points to exchange, and construction and materials do not require merit points. They can all be completed using the people and materials in the One Piece world. It's quite in line with Li Yan's current needs. As for the remaining 1 million merit points, he can't use them recklessly, since there are still issues such as the relocation and deployment of the gravity training room later, all of which will require merit points. Knock knock knock. Come in. Just after Li Yan exchanged for the blueprints for the large ordinary naval port, there was a knock on the office door. "Major General, as per your request, I have issued orders to all branch leaders, requiring them to temporarily hand over their work to their deputies and arrive here within a week. I say, Anne, when there's no one else around, you don't need to be so formal, do you?" "No." Shaking his head, Anne directly refused. "All right, whatever makes you happy. Major General, do you remember what you promised me?" "Oh? Did I promise you anything? What was it?" "Li Yan. See, that's much more normal now. I wasn't used to your acting like that just now." Looking at Anne's instantly changed expression, Li Yan said with a smile, "Come on, my junior sister Anne, let me show you the biggest secret of my 18th branch." Chapter 94. The Strong Attract Opportunities. Beneath the training camp, in the 10 times gravity training room. After spending over 10 minutes teaching Anne how to use it and having a go at it himself, Li Yan expected some words of thanks. But instead, he was met with, "All right, you can leave now. Don't get in the way." Seriously, is this how an adjutant should treat their superior? Li Yan immediately felt he'd chosen the wrong adjutant. He should have recruited Tina instead of Anne. However, it was too late for regrets now. This ancestor was already here, and there was no getting rid of her. And judging by her attitude, she was practically making the gravity training room her home, practically bringing her bedding. Fine, he couldn't afford to mess with her, so he'd leave. With a helpless wry smile, Li Yan left the gravity training room. A few minutes later, in the underground research base complex, at the Gun and Cannon Research Institute. Major General, who the genius was who came up with these two documents? Could it be Vegapunk? Putting everything else aside, this vision for the future development of the steam engine is simply amazing. According to the ideas here, the steam engine can be applied to all aspects of Tier 10. Take the example mentioned above. If steam power were used to replace sails, then even in windless zones, we could travel freely. And that's not all. Once the technology is mature enough, the speed of warships could potentially double, even reaching over 20 knots. And the vision for the development of rifled cannon technology is simply. Looking at the two documents Li Yan brought, Levin was even more excited than when he saw the rifle documents last time, talking for several minutes without stopping. Speaking of this vision for the application of steam technology. In fact, this technology already existed in this pirate world. It was the sea train developed by Tom, S-Bag's mentor, which used steam power. However, since Tom's death, for so many years, no one in this world has thought of applying this great technology to other areas, which is quite speechless. This really does prove Li Yan right. The world of One Piece is never short of scientific geniuses, but it is short of normal flashes of inspiration. Why do I say normal flashes of inspiration? Because scientists in the world of One Piece often have flashes of inspiration that go in the wrong direction, leading them to some strange and unusual places. By the way, Levin, next to the Gun and Cannon Research Institute, I'm building a chemical research institute, which will be connected to the two existing research institutes after completion. A chemical research institute? I have some experience in this area, but I'm not an expert. It's okay, I've already found a research team specializing in chemistry, and they'll be here in a few days. A whole team. Where is that team from? Hearing Li Yan's words, Levin immediately became interested and asked. However, this question was a bit awkward. Even Li Yan himself didn't know where this team came from. According to the system's temperament, they might even be from the Navy Science Department. In short, no matter where they came from, the system would make it reasonable, just like Levin's team. I haven't met him yet, he'll be there when he arrives. I'm telling you this in advance so you can prepare. After all, we'll be having more and more research institutes and research teams, eventually forming a massive underground research base. Therefore, I plan to formally establish a science department directly under the 18th branch of the East China Sea, and this science department needs someone to help me with overall management. How about it? Are you confident? Although Levin isn't a comprehensive research genius like Vegapunk, that doesn't matter. Li Yan values his overall management and coordination abilities. At least for now, Levin's performance in this area has consistently satisfied Li Yan. When he heard that Li Yan planned to make him the head of the entire research department, Levin was immediately excited. The current gun and ship research institutes alone, with their environment and equipment, are like paradise for every researcher. And now Li Yan has built a chemical research institute, and even boasted that he will build more research institutes in other subjects in the future, until it eventually becomes a massive research base. No, for Levin, this was no longer just a research base, but a research mecca that could rival the entire world. Therefore, how could he not be excited when Li Yan told him he was to be in charge of this research mecca? Rear Admiral, rest assured, I will do my utmost and will never let you down. Very good. Patting Levin on the shoulder, Li Yan nodded in satisfaction and said loudly. By the way, I've already found a group of shipbuilders from Carrera Company, and the shipyard is under construction. It's expected to be completed in a month, so you'll have to keep an eye on the naval guns. Don't let anything go wrong. There's one more thing. You can talk to Bucky about the shells. Although he's not very reliable, his ability to develop high-powered shells is absolutely top-notch in the world. Also, the chemistry team that arrives later should be able to help. Before leaving the research department, Li Yan specifically instructed Levin about the naval guns. After all, his plan to mass-produce warships would soon begin, and it would be truly embarrassing if the ships were there but the guns weren't. Don't worry, Major General. With this complete technical concept for rifled cannons, if I still can't handle it, I might as well pack my bags and go home to farm. Yes, that's good. Just apply for funding without hesitation. I only want results. Yes, Major General. Li Yan was confident in Levin. He reiterated his previous statement, Scientists in the One Piece world only lack ideas. Once given those ideas, you'll find their research speed is simply phenomenal. System: use that strong person attraction opportunity on me too. Ding. 1 strong person attraction opportunity consumed. Within the next month, you will attract at least 1 strong person with S-rank talent and fully developed strength. Please prepare. After returning to the ground, Li Yan immediately activated the system's main event of the day, the project he was most looking forward to. 1 strong person attraction opportunity, and not the kind like Luffy and his crew whose strength was just beginning, but those who had already reached full strength. This would add a very powerful force to the 18 branches. Of course, the prerequisite was, he had to be able to retain them. A month? Who could it be? I'm really looking forward to it. Hearing the system's voice echoing in his mind, Li Yan murmured, gazing at the distant sea. Chapter 95 Branch Secretary Assessment. 7 days have passed in the blink of an eye. Today is the last day of the deadline Li Yan gave to all the branch leaders, but 5 people still haven't arrived. Li Yan, if these 5 don't show up today, are you really going to take action? Inside the office, the window was wide open. There was no way around it. Smoker, that old smoker, was just too good. Smoking 2 cigars at once was unbelievable. If you looked from outside the branch building at this moment, you might even have the illusion that Li Yan's office was on fire, with a billowing smoke. It was unclear whether it was due to his smoke fruit, but the amount of smoke produced by 2 normal cigars was at least 10 times denser. It was really enough. Hey, senior smoker, could you put out the smoke inside first? As for what you're talking about, I already conveyed that when I had N give the order, replace them in less than a week. If you want to plead for them, don't bother. After a helpless complaint, Li Yan said with a serious expression. There was no room for negotiation on this matter. You idiot, am I pleading for them? I'm just trying to give you a friendly reminder. Have you ever thought about why the base commanders in the 4 Seas branch are so weak, and many of them don't even have the strength of an ordinary marine? Smoker said to Li Yan in an annoyed tone. Of course I know. There are usually 2 situations for those who get appointed to these branches in the 4 Seas. One is being demoted, like you and me, senior brother. Of course, in this case, they definitely won't be assigned to a good place in the 4 Seas. For example, you were assigned to Loga Town to guard the entrance to the Grand Line, while I was assigned to this Corona Island, which is like a no man's land. The other situation is to use connections to make money. After all, the pirate forces here are weak and not dangerous. In addition, this place is much richer than the Grand Line. You can easily make a lot of money by doing some dirty work, especially in exploiting the common people. The 16th branch is a good example. In addition, in order to cover up their actions, they will also bribe their way up and down. Many nobles in the East Blue Kingdom, and even some high-ranking officers in the Navy, are on this chain of interests. So, touching them is equivalent to touching the interests of countless people. Li Yan naturally understood what Smoker was saying, and he was very clear about the relationships behind it. But so what? With the system in hand, as long as Mary Gia's bottom line wasn't crossed, he wasn't worried at all. Even if he only had 2 or 3 years, he would dare to directly confront Li Yan of Mary Gia's. They were just some nobles from the 4 Seas, plus some corrupt officials in the Navy. They didn't have the audacity to let him hide. You bastard, since you know all this, why? Senior Smoker, if I remember correctly, you were demoted to the East Blue because you couldn't stand some of the dirty dealings within the Navy, right? What, a few years in the East Blue have worn down your edges? Hearing Li Yan's words, Smoker's face immediately darkened. Back then, he was undoubtedly one of the most outstanding in his elite training camp, but look at Tina from the same cohort. Although they were both colonels, one was a headquarters colonel, and the other a branch colonel, their status was worlds apart. Most importantly, after staying in the East Blue for several years, Smoker's strength hadn't improved. In fact, it had declined considerably. In short, he was too comfortable. Alright, you're the governor now, do whatever you want, but there's one thing we need to discuss. What is it? The 100 Marines I sent to you will be ready in a few days, almost 3 months. Hold on, Fleet Admiral Sengoku has already issued the order. Senior Smoker should have received it, right? Before Smoker could finish, Li Yan knew what he was going to say and interrupted him. Smoker had naturally received Sengoku's order, but he was heartbroken. He had sent 100 Marines for training, and it was paid training at that. Smoker was very concerned about these Marines, especially after learning about the events in Mocktown and the G8 branch. He was incredibly excited. But then, headquarters issued an order, and these people were no longer as concerned. This made Smoker truly feel terrible. We can't manage these 100 people, but you can send another batch for training. I don't believe you. Senior, you can't refuse to send them. After the branch leaders are reorganized, it'll be the Marines' turn. At that time, all Marines from the East Blue will have to complete their training at the 18th branch and pass the assessment. Are you planning to completely ruin the East Blue? It was 3 p.m., exactly 1 week after Anne relayed the order. In front of the branch building, on the makeshift training ground that Gross had set up these past few days, Leanne surveyed the 14 branch leaders standing below. It's better than I expected. I originally thought that at most 8 or 9 people would come within the time limit, and I had even arranged for 10 people to take over the positions of the branch-based leaders, but now there are only 5 positions, which makes me a little unhappy, so I'll increase the difficulty of the assessment this month to squeeze out enough positions for the people I've arranged to take up their posts. As soon as he started speaking, Leanne's words made the branch leaders below twitch at the corners of their mouths. The implication was clear. Besides the 5 who didn't show up, they were planning to eliminate at least 5 more? That was ruthless. Now I announced the test requirements. First, without using devil fruit abilities or other skills, your Deo power value must reach 100 or higher. Second, before the end of the test, I must not find any evidence of corruption or bribery. Third, within 1 month, kill or capture a pirate with a bounty of at least 5 million berries. If all 3 requirements are met, you pass. How about that? Pretty simple, right? If you can't even pass this, then get out of here. For a moment, the entire training ground was silent. Simple. Incredibly simple. The first requirement was one thing, at least there was some hope, but the second? How many branch leaders in the East Blue are completely clean? But just as everyone was internally complaining, someone spoke up. Governor, I'd like to conduct the first assessment now, is that all right? Of course. It was Smoker who spoke. For him, these 3 assessment criteria were no problem at all, especially the first one, 100 Deo power points, a piece of cake. And have someone bring up the Deo power testing device. Yes, Major General. This was something Leanne had specifically taken from Zephyr before returning to the East Sea. Although he could check it directly through his attribute panel, this couldn't be revealed to outsiders. Therefore, having a Deo power testing device was quite necessary. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Deo Power Value, 99. A few minutes later, a large, black device was placed on the training ground, and Smoker, too lazy to even warm up, immediately began. White fist. Boom. His right arm, except for his fist, turned into white smoke as he unleashed his right fist, slamming it hard into the testing device. The result was quickly displayed, power level 580. This value blinded the other branch leaders. It was simply too powerful. Looking at their expressions, Smoker dispelled the elementalization of his right arm with disdain. He hadn't even used his full strength yet, okay? But just as he was about to return to the branch leaders group, Leanne spoke up. Colonel Smoker, I think I said something about reaching 100 power level without using devil fruit abilities or other skills? A normal punch, or a normal kick, how about that? Or even a normal headbutt? Oh. Smoker, who had only taken a few steps, suddenly froze. It seemed like he had indeed said that. This was a bit awkward. Governor, can I try again? I'll let you off the hook the first time, I'll give you another chance. Seeing Leanne nod, Smoker returned to the testing device. However, unlike last time, he didn't just throw a casual punch. Instead, he took a deep breath first. What was the power level of a punch he could generate without his devil fruit ability during his elite training at headquarters, 120 or 130? To be honest, he couldn't quite remember, but it was definitely over 100. Not wanting to embarrass himself, Smoker prepared to go all out this time. He bent over, raised his right fist, and then, boom. Although the sound wasn't as loud as before, it was still quite strong. After retracting his fist, Smoker immediately looked at the scale display. The pointer, which had been at the bottom pointing to 0, suddenly rose, but stopped after a short distance. When the pointer stopped and he saw the mark it was pointing to, Smoker was completely taken aback. Dao power value. 99. Even if you gave me 90, 80, or even 50, I'd accept it. But 99? What the hell? Was this intentional? Actually, Li Yan was also completely bewildered. He had originally planned to have Smoker be the first to test, to show these branch leaders that the East Sea did have qualified generals. But what happened? Senior brother, you gave me a 99? Are you kidding me? I hereby announce that Colonel Smoker has failed the Dao power value test. If he still cannot pass within a month, he will be removed from his position as branch leader of Loga Town. Is there anyone else who wants to try? Still, no one spoke. Don't be ridiculous, even Smoker failed, so they're even less likely to succeed. If no one else, then I'll announce the arrangements for this month. The arrangements for this month are, no arrangements. The group that had just perked up their ears were completely stunned by Li Yan's words. What did he mean by no arrangements? Isn't it strange? Actually, it's very simple. If you feel your strength is insufficient and want to improve, I allow you to temporarily join the East Blue Elite Training Camp and seek guidance from Instructor Thor. Of course, you can also go out to sea directly to complete the third test, which is the pirate with a 5 million berry bounty. As for the specific time arrangement, you can decide for yourselves. I won't interfere. Even if you sleep all day and do nothing for a month, that's fine, as long as you can pass all 3 tests after a month. Any questions? Li Yan shouted directly at the group of branch leaders below. Rear Admiral, can you show us your strength? That's right, Rear Admiral, show us your skills. Yes, show us your strength so we have a goal, right? See, here comes the troublemaker. Even these branch leaders who arrived on time are not necessarily able to completely obey Li Yan's orders. They are just a little smarter than the other 5 and know not to stand out. However, after seeing that Smoker could only achieve a score of 99 points, some people had ideas. They didn't believe this excessively young guy could be stronger than Smoker, a former top graduate of the main training camp. So, with one person leading the way, the others started jeering. Li Yan merely sneered, whispered something to An, and then walked towards the testing device. Without any preparation, he swung his fist and smashed it down. Boom! With a loud bang, even the testing device visibly vibrated. Dao power value. 1150. Hiss. The branch leader's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. 1150? What kind of godlike value is that? A normal punch? Did you use some special method to hide your abilities? But even if you did hide them, it's still too exaggerated. Smoker only managed 580 after using his devil fruit power. Not only the branch leaders, but even Smoker looked at his junior brother with a complicated expression. He knew that Li Yan was a swordsman who had mastered all 6 styles of swordsmanship and even awakened 2 types of haki. If a normal punch could reach this level, how terrifying would it be when combined with the 6 styles and haki, or even when using swordsmanship directly? It seemed that he had indeed been lax in his studies all these years. While everyone was still in shock, Anne, who had just left, returned to the training ground with several people. There were Luffy, Buggy, Najiko, and Larnus, all officers of the rank of colonel, and even lieutenant-level officers like Sanders. Let's begin. Just as everyone was wondering what these people were doing there, Li Yan spoke calmly. First, Luffy, with a grin on his face, came to the testing device and threw a punch. Doki value. 650. Next was Najiko's Doki value. 220. Then everyone else came up to demonstrate. Even the lieutenant-level officers like Sanders all achieved scores above 100 Doki. Even the weakest ensign had a Doki value of 102 with a single punch. Crucially, Smoker recognized this ensign. He was one of the 100 Marines he had personally sent to the 18th branch. This was utterly devastating. A recruit, someone he had personally sent to the 18th branch and who had only trained for 3 months, could have a higher Doki value with a single punch than him? What was wrong with this world? Just then, after scanning the group of branch leaders below and giving a cold laugh, Li Yan spoke. Now, anything else? Chapter 97. I'm not getting involved in this mess. 100 points of power difficult? Obviously not. Is it difficult to avoid being caught embezzling or breaking the law? That's just how it should be. Is it difficult to collect a 5 million bounty in a month? Unless you're extremely corrupt, it's not difficult even in the East Blue. If Li Yan's assessment were given to the colonels of the headquarters, it would be child's play, but for these branch leaders in the East Blue, it's hellish. Of course, Smoker is an exception. But Li Yan still gave them a chance, otherwise, he would have just given them a direct assessment instead of a month-long one. As he said, if you feel your strength is insufficient, you can go to the elite training camp. What does this mean? The subtext is that you can use the gravity training room to quickly improve your strength. 100 points of power is nothing, as long as your talent isn't too poor or the gap is too large. With the help of the gravity training room, you can still reach it within the time limit. As for the secrets of the gravity training room? Just kidding, Li Yan said. Since becoming the governor of the East China Sea, everyone in these East China Sea branches is now under Li Yan's personnel management system. Therefore, buildings marked with a classified label are equally effective for them. A little over 10 minutes later, Smoker, finally free from his existential doubts, arrived at the East China Sea Elite Training Camp, formerly the 18th Branch Training Camp. Kid, you're supposed to be from the headquarters Elite Training Camp, and you only have 99 points in power? You have the nerve? Thor, who had already heard about the 99-point incident, immediately started scolding Smoker upon seeing him enter. Let me tell you, although Li Yan gave you a target of 100 points for a normal punch, as the former head of the headquarters elite training camp, you have to reach at least 300 points within half a month, or you're fired, you hear me? What are you standing there for? Get over here. Thor scolded, seeing Smoker frozen in place. Smoker was truly dumbfounded. In just half a month, his Dao power increased to 300, and that was the Dao power of a normal punch. How was that even possible? But Thor was, after all, his former instructor at the training camp, and his influence still lingered. Even though he had some complaints in his heart, he quickly followed. Without a word, he took him directly to the gravity training room beneath the training camp and let Smoker experience 5 times the gravity. Well, after experiencing it, Smoker was completely numb. However, after the numbness subsided, he immediately realized what this gravity training room meant. He also understood why the recruits he sent for training could become so strong in 3 months, with one even having a Dao power of 2 points higher than his own for a normal punch. The key was, he had just heard instructor Thor say that this was only 5 times the gravity. The highest level gravity training room here could even simulate 20 times. Train. Train like crazy. It's just increasing Dao power to 300, right? With this divine artifact, what's impossible? While Smoker was excitedly throwing himself into training, 8 officers, ranging from lieutenant colonels to colonels, were crammed into a dormitory in the Marine barracks, each with a grim expression. "Where are Warner and the others?" asked Howie, from the East Blue's second branch, the most senior of all the East Blue branch leaders. Having served for over 15 years. "We already called them, but they said they needed to hurry up and train. They're probably all at that so-called East China Sea Elite Training Camp now. Forget about them for now. What do you guys think about what happened today? What else can we think? Li Yan is just playing us. How can we possibly pass this kind of assessment? That's right, he's just looking for an excuse to fire us all and replace us with his own cronies so he can completely control the entire East China Sea Navy. I think we should report this to Vice Admiral Savara. We can't let Li Yan run rampant like this." I agree. The Navy absolutely cannot have a warlord. This is a betrayal of the Navy's justice. That's right. We must do something for the Navy's justice. After hearing Howie's question, the other 7 men chimed in, all expressing righteous indignation. In their eyes, Li Yan had completely transformed into the root of evil who must be punished by justice. That's how the world is. As long as you're in the Navy, even if you're doing the most evil things, you can explain it all as for justice. Repeatedly shouting these 4 words as a slogan, anything is possible. Howe was quite satisfied with their performance. After all, they were all in the same boat. Even Vice Admiral Savara, who was in charge of coordinating the 4 seas branches at headquarters, wouldn't just watch them all perish. Although Savara hadn't participated in what they had done over the years, he had received quite a bit of bribery. If it came down to reckoning, he wouldn't escape either. Naval Headquarters, Vice Admiral Savara's office. Returning from Sengoku's office, he was extremely uneasy. Just now, he had been suddenly informed by his fleet admiral that the newly appointed Governor-General of the East China Sea, Li Yan wanted to reorganize the East China Sea. This wouldn't normally be a big deal. A new broom sweeps clean, and every governor-general of the four seas usually undertakes a reorganization upon taking office. It's standard procedure. But the problem was, after the fleet admiral showed him Li Yan's reorganization plan, Savara was immediately alarmed. If this plan were implemented, how many of the East China Sea branch leaders would remain? 5? 3? Or perhaps none will survive? Who knows those guys better than I do? This is going to cause a huge uproar. Burp burp burp. Hey, this is Zavara. Lieutenant General, this is Howie from the 2nd branch of the East China Sea. Oh, Howie, didn't I remember you were summoned to the 18th branch by Major General Li Yan? What's up? While saying this, Zavara cursed inwardly. These guys really had come looking for him. Normally, as long as it wasn't too outrageous, he'd help if he could. After all, he'd received quite a few gifts from them before. But not this time. The Marshal had just given him a stern warning not to interfere in East China Sea affairs. Lieutenant General, I'm at the 18th branch right now. Major General Li Yan said today that he's going to conduct assessments on all branch leaders, and anyone who fails will be dismissed. That's to be expected, and we absolutely wouldn't dare to object, but the assessment standards that Major General Li Yan has set are simply. This is just using the guise of reorganization to try and remove us all to replace us with his own people, so he can take control of the entire East China Sea. Lieutenant General, you have to do something about this. Otherwise East China Sea will have a warlord. At this point, Howie even started to cry, which made Savara somewhat puzzled. Although he had seen Li Yan's reorganization plan and knew that the first step was to eliminate unqualified branch leaders through assessments, Howie's words seemed to suggest that the assessment content was impossible to complete. If that were the case, it was very likely that he was trying to replace the branches with his own people, and his intentions needed to be carefully considered. Howie, tell me, what were the assessment criteria that Major General Li Yan set for you? Lieutenant General, the Major General set 3 assessment criteria. The first is to reach 100 Doki without using devil fruit abilities or other skills. The second is to not be found guilty of any corruption or illegal activities. The third is to kill or capture pirates with a total bounty of 5 million within a month. That's it? Upon hearing this, Savara's expression was extremely strange. This was the assessment Howie was talking about, impossible to complete and deliberately designed? Although he knew these people were weak, he never imagined they were this weak. This kind of assessment, even any major in headquarters could probably complete it easily. Lieutenant General, isn't that enough? Smoker tried it today, and guess what? 99 Doki. He only got 100. Even the former top student of the headquarters elite training camp couldn't complete it, so what about us? This was presented logically and convincingly, leaving Savara speechless. Howie meant that if even Smoker, a top graduate of the elite training camp, couldn't complete it, then those of us who hadn't even been to a regular training camp had even less of a chance. You tell me, does that make sense? Okay, to put it literally, it does make sense. If Savara were to answer that the assessment was easy and no problem at all, wouldn't that be a slap in the face to headquarters? What's wrong with that Smoker guy? Howie, it's not that I don't want to help you, but the Marshal just warned me that I'm not allowed to interfere in Major General Li Yan's reorganization of the East China Sea, so you guys should think carefully about how to pass the assessment. With those 2 sentences, Savara hung up the phone. This mess, I'm not getting involved. Chapter 98. Even nobles are no match for you. In the dormitory, the branch leaders stared blankly at the Den Mushi in Howie's hand, now that it had been disconnected. What did this mean? Fleet Admiral Sengoku had personally warned Vice Admiral Zavara not to interfere in East Blue affairs? What were they going to do? If even the Fleet Admiral had given such a warning, it seemed like no one at headquarters could get through to them. Don't panic, if headquarters can't handle it, we can still turn to those nobles. If we fall, they'll lose a lot of their illicit income every year. Branch leader Howie is right. We can explain the pros and cons to those nobles and then get them to lobby the king to put pressure on Marine headquarters. That way, even Fleet Admiral Sengoku will have to reconsider. I know Marcus Tree of the Goa Kingdom well, I'll contact him. I'll talk to the nobles of the Sumda Kingdom, no problem. I'll handle Kato's side. At the mention of nobles, the branch leaders perked up again, each volunteering for tasks with exceptional enthusiasm. Who did these people deal with most in the East Blue? Sorry, not pirates, but the nobles. Take Kikoyasi village in the Jomita Islands, for example. The rat of the 16th branch, in collusion with the Arlong pirates, has ruled for so many years. So here's the question, how could the Jomita kingdom not know that Kikoyasi village hadn't paid taxes for years? Don't be ridiculous. These nobles might be careless or make mistakes in other matters, but when it comes to collecting money, they're absolutely professional. So why wouldn't the Jomita kingdom know that a bunch of villages hadn't paid taxes for years? It's simple, some nobles were deceiving their superiors and covering for the rat. Of course, these nobles wouldn't work for free, the rat would inevitably give them a portion of its annual profits. And the Kikoyasi village incident was just a small part of this gray area profit chain. For the entire chain to function, these branch leaders naturally dealt most frequently with the nobles. Everyone picked up their den mushi, contacting the nobles they were on good terms with. Even Howie contacted the 5 branch leaders below the 18th branch, urging them to coordinate their actions. Amidst their complaints, the nobles naturally patted their chests and agreed that this matter would be no problem for them. After all, they were also beneficiaries of this gray area profit chain. If all these branch leaders were dismissed, what would they eat? Of course, they weren't celestial dragons, nor did they have the audacity to pressure the navy themselves, so they naturally deceived their own kings, using the kingdoms as leverage. However, Li Yan and Sengoku, having anticipated this, were well prepared. The kings not only refused the nobles' demands but also severely reprimanded them, ultimately kicking them out. How did Li Yan and Sengoku achieve this? It was surprisingly simple. They simply told the kings to compare their annual kingdom tax revenue 20 years ago with the current revenue. The comparison was astonishing. Compared to 20 years ago, each kingdom's tax revenue had decreased by nearly half. This was outrageous. They went crazy. That was money. Then, they were told that the total amount of money hadn't changed, but the number of people distributing it had increased, thus reducing the kingdom's income. Let's take Kikoyasi village as an example. Each year, villagers receive 20 coins, 10 of which are to be handed over to the kingdom. But what's the situation now? The 10 coins that should have been the kingdom's are being divided among the Arlong pirates, the rats of the 16 branches, and the nobles of the kingdom of Sumda. What does this mean? The minor nobles are colluding with outsiders to swindle the major nobles' money. Therefore, Sengoku told these kings that this reorganization of the navy is to prevent this situation and ensure that each kingdom receives all the money annually. This is to protect your money, understand? Okay, no amount of reasoning will help, but as soon as money is mentioned, especially the king's money, they instantly understand. They immediately pat their chests and guarantee their absolute support for Li Yan's reorganization plan, no matter who says otherwise. And the result is what we see now. These nobles from various kingdoms, in their attempts to persuade their kings, have all failed. The nobles suddenly realize that their kings seem impervious to reason. Now, Howie and the others are truly panicked. Even nobles aren't enough, what are we going to do? How about, we go train a bit? Maybe we can actually pass the 100-point AO power test with a little effort? Just as everyone was silent, Brawl from the 4th branch spoke up. However, his voice lacked confidence. Didn't we all try after Lian left? What were your scores? 794. Well, this group of branch leaders, already drained by wine and women, had a DAO power score as high as Howie's, but even that was only 21 points. More than half of the rest had single-digit scores. In other words, most of them hadn't even reached the DAO power score of an ordinary marine. How are they going to do this? Forget a month, even 3 months, half a year, they have no confidence. Branch building, Li Yan's office. Knock knock knock. Come in. Li Yan, just as you guessed, those guys are all gathered together and constantly communicating with others via Den Mushi. First, it was Lieutenant General Zavara at headquarters, then the nobles of various kingdoms. An began his report as soon as he entered the office. Howie and the others had no idea that An had overheard everything they had done and said. After all, these guys were too weak, and didn't even need to be careful. Even if he openly eavesdropped, they wouldn't notice. Just as I expected, what was the result? Lieutenant General Savara directly refused to provide assistance, and those nobles all seemed to have run into a wall with their respective kings. Now, the 7 of them are out of options. But only 7 people, which is fewer than expected. How did the others do at the training camp? Although they're not strong either, they're much stronger than the others. According to the tests, Their DAO power values are all between 50 and 70. If they work hard enough within a month, they should be able to complete the assessment targets. Ian had also observed Warner and the other four in detail and had even reviewed their data. It could be said that, in terms of both strength and daily conduct, although they weren't exactly competent branch leaders, they were at least far better than Howie and the others. Hearing this, Leanne nodded. Moreover, according to the system panel, the loyalty of Warner's 5 was also much higher than that of Howie and the others, although the highest was only 50. But it should be noted that the 7 people on Howie's side not only had single-digit DAO power values, but also single-digit loyalty, with some even having 0 loyalty. Compared to that, Warner's 50 loyalty points are actually quite high. Chapter 99 The Problem of Warship Main Guns. Half a month passed quietly. About 30 nautical miles north of the 18th branch, on the deck of a large warship, more than a dozen researchers in white lab coats were busy at work. The most eye-catching feature was the twin-mounted giant cannon on the bow deck. Compared to the chubby muzzle-loading smoothbore cannons of the One Piece world, this cannon was distinctly different, clearly a rifled cannon. Speaking of which, Leanne truly admired the scientists of the One Piece world. Only half a month. In his previous life, even with a research guide, it would have taken at least several months to produce a test product. Rear Admiral, everything is ready. We can test. Don't worry about me. Just test according to your procedures. I'm just here to observe. Yes, Rear Admiral. Saluting, Levin immediately began giving orders. Load. The scene that unfolded after Levin's order made Leanne's lips twitch slightly. Such a large shell, and a Marine just carried it to the stern with both hands, seemingly without any effort? Well, the people in the pirate world are truly amazing. Report, loading complete. Fill the propellant charge. Report, propellant charge filled. Close the breech. Breech closed. Target closed. Target ship 3,000 meters to port, gunner taking aim. Aiming complete. As the gunner took aim, the entire turret slowly rotated to the left, then one of the guns rose slightly. Fire. Boom. With a deafening roar, the shell flew rapidly from the barrel, spinning. The recoil from the firing even caused the entire large warship to shift sideways by more than 10 meters. Seconds later, when the shell landed, although it had missed by tens of meters, the massive explosion created a wave that capsized a small target ship dozens of meters away. Quickly, conduct a full inspection, including the warship. Yes, Minister. Under Levin's command, all the researchers and Marines on board sprang into action, thoroughly inspecting the test gun and the entire warship. The results confirmed Leanne's earlier suspicions. The gun was powerful, but compared to the smaller caliber secondary guns tested a few days prior, the current warship couldn't withstand the force of this massive cannon. Just one shot had already caused multiple cracks on the deck. If multiple shots were fired simultaneously, the warship would likely fall apart. It seemed Levin needed to work on the recoil reduction, and the current warship design needed to be reworked. There was also the issue of materials for building the warship. Otherwise, this gun could only be used as a coastal defense weapon on land, and was completely unsuitable for shipboard use. After this test firing, Levin dared not conduct a second test firing and had to end the test early and return to the branch. In reality, Lin Fan wasn't in a hurry for the warship's main guns. After all, the secondary guns tested a few days ago were already far superior to the naval guns currently in service with the Navy, with their range, power, and accuracy all increasing several times over. As for these 300 to 400 mm caliber cannons, frankly, there wasn't much use for them for the time being. After all, Leanne's current enemies were just pirates. When he returned to the branch, seeing Levin's somewhat dejected mood, Leanne comforted him, telling him not to be too impatient and to take it one step at a time. While Leanne was quietly developing his forces, a major event occurred in the New World. More than a month ago, a pirate alliance emerged in the New World. Although it didn't involve the 4 emperors, these pirate crews were all very powerful. Even the weakest captain had a bounty of 300 million berries. Most importantly, the Navy received intelligence that this pirate alliance's target was the Navy's last base in the New World, G1 branch. If this place were to fall, the Navy would completely lose its foothold in the New World, a significant blow. Therefore, headquarters immediately dispatched 2 admirals to deal with the pirate alliance and also drew 20,000 Marines from headquarters and various branches along the Grand Line for reinforcement. This was precisely why Vice Admiral Jonathan led over 1,000 elite troops from the G8 branch to leave earlier. Originally, the battle was a back-and-forth affair, with no clear victor. While the two admirals were powerful, the dozens of pirate crews from the New World were clearly not weak either. Even in a one-on-one fight, no one could stop an admiral, but several, even 10, working together could still hold them off. After all, these were renowned pirate crews from the New World, none of whose captains were weak, far superior to the supernovas from the first half of Paradise. Over 10 days, the two sides clashed 3 times in that sea area, suffering significant losses on both sides, until a naval reinforcement fleet arrived. This fleet was actually not large, consisting of only 1 super warship and 3 large warships, with a total of just over 1,000 Marines. However, these 1,000-plus Marines were somewhat special. Apart from the 500 Marines on the command ship Mimosagi, the 1,000 Marines on the other 3 large warships were all hastily selected by headquarters. They might not be particularly strong in combat, but they had one thing in common: they were all expert marksmen. For this reinforcement, Navy headquarters spent a considerable sum, having Vegapunk Rush produce 1,000 Corona Type 18 rifles, costing over 700 million berries. Originally, Sengoku's plan was to wait until the material production problem was solved before mass production and equipment deployment. After all, having a laboratory produce them was too expensive. However, after witnessing the performance of the Corona Type 18 in the battles of Marktown and G8 branch, coupled with the increasingly tense situation at G1 branch, Sengoku changed his mind. He decided to produce 1,000 guns first, and then select 1,000 skilled Marines from headquarters to form a special experimental fleet. As for the 500 guns in Mimosagi's possession, it was an unexpected bonus, especially since she paid for them herself without asking headquarters for a penny. Thus, after Mimosagi left the G8 branch, she received orders from Sengoku to go to headquarters to join this special fleet and then head to G1 branch to provide support, as the situation there looked like it could escalate into a fight at any moment. This was also the battle in which the Corona Type 18 was truly exposed to all pirates. When 4 warships entered the battlefield, the 1,500 Corona Type 18 guns, with their effective range set even further than pirate ship cannons, were simply unstoppable. After all, the muzzle-loading smoothbore cannons they used were already missing their targets at a distance of 200 to 300 meters. Aside from the mid to high-level pirates, the lower-ranking pirates, who made up 90% of the force, were unilaterally slaughtered. Even after Mimosagi arrived at the center of the battlefield, the area frozen by Aokiji, the Marines jumped off their ships and charged towards the main battlefield. While the mid to high-level pirates weren't overly afraid of the Corona 18, they were still hampered. Unless you were a Logia-type user, you had to constantly be on guard against a Marines wielding the Corona 18. If a bullet came flying at you and you didn't dodge or use localized armament haki for defense, you'd still be injured or even killed. The already stalemate quickly turned into a one-sided affair with the addition of 1,500 Corona 18s. After all, having to defend against sniper fire while simultaneously dealing with a mid to high-level Marines was simply impossible. As for Akenyu and Aokiji, who noticed this, although they were somewhat shocked by the power of Corona's 18 styles, they didn't miss the opportunity and immediately ordered the Navy to launch a full-scale counterattack. The pirates, realizing the situation was dire, naturally wanted to escape, but the problem was that the entire sea area was frozen by Aokiji. Except for those pirates with flying abilities, the others had no way to escape. Here, we must mention Aokiji's ice fruit. On the high seas, especially in large-scale army battles, his devil fruit ability is practically a bug. After 3 hours, apart from a few pirates who escaped, the rest were either killed or captured. The Navy won this crucial battle with minimal losses. And Corona's 18 styles, which caused this victory, also shocked the entire world. Chapter 100 Between Power. On the Red Line, in the Holy Land of Merijais, amidst the power struggles. What do you think of the Corona 18? The speaker was an elderly man in a black suit, with white curly hair and a bushy white beard, who, even seated, still leaned on a cane. Not a big problem. For those with sufficient strength, it doesn't pose much of a threat, and you're the ones controlling the weapon, so there's no need to worry too much, said the long-haired elder. Indeed, and according to the Navy Science Department's report, producing this kind of weapon isn't easy. Even Vegapunk would need several months to solve the material problem before large-scale mass production. Therefore, at least for the short term, we don't need to worry about other forces copying it. The key issue lies with Li Yan, the blunt five elder beside him said after a moment's thought. Li Yan's background is clean, but things have been rather strange since he went to the 18th branch of the East Blue. First, a large number of people traveled great distances to enlist in the Navy there. Then, he quickly trained a large number of elite Marines. Even a research team from the Vinsmoke family went to Corona Island to join him. You know, before Li Yan arrived, even pirates wouldn't bother going to that area. The fat five elders nodded in agreement after hearing the blonde five elders' words. Clearly, they had noticed Li Yan long ago and had thoroughly investigated his activities in the East Blue. Indeed, based on this information, Li Yan and the 18th branch seemed rather odd. But even though it seems strange, we can't find anything wrong. In fact, he's quite honest, both about the Vinsmoke research team and their research results, namely the Corona Type 18, and he even voluntarily handed over the complete set of design blueprints. Otherwise, why haven't we made a move against him yet? At this moment, the five elders with swords also spoke up. From his words, it was clear that they had originally planned to take action against Li Yan. After all, to the five of them, Li Yan was nothing. Even if they killed the wrong person, it wouldn't matter. The threat had to be nipped in the bud. But Li Yan's voluntary handover of all the technology and design blueprints of the Corona Type 18 surprised them at the time. In addition, Li Yan did not hide anything from Levin's team, even allowing Kizaru to contact them, and said that as long as Levin was willing to go to the Navy Science Department, he could leave at any time. This made them temporarily lower their guard against Li Yan. But that's only temporary. The day the five elders discover that Li Yan poses even the slightest threat to their rule, even if it's just a vague suspicion, they will not hesitate to strike without hesitation. We can put that aside for now. I'm quite interested in Sengoku's plan to control Reverse Mountain and cut off the pirates' access to fresh blood from the four seas. I heard. This plan was also proposed by Li Yan, and Sengoku plans to have Li Yan conduct a pilot program in the East Blue to see the results. After everyone had expressed their opinions, the curly-haired five elders spoke again. This plan is indeed feasible. In the past, we only focused on the Grand Line, neglecting the vast majority of pirate origins, the four seas. That's right, but there are quite a few problems. The pirates won't just stand by and watch us cut off the four seas' access to the Grand Line, especially those four. Yes. So Sengoku's method is still viable. Let's test it in the East Blue first and see their reaction. Agreed. Although the collapse of the three major powers' alliances would directly disrupt world stability, the pirate forces have expanded too rapidly in the past 20 years. It's time to weaken them. Seconded. 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 Since everyone agrees, let's warn those kingdoms in the East Blue to behave themselves in this matter. Nodding, the five elders with curly hair concluded. As they said, the current balance of the three major powers is the foundation for maintaining Marigia's rule. The ideal is to use pirate forces to threaten the world, then have the Navy strike them down in the name of justice. Other kingdoms, to avoid being ravaged by pirates, had no choice but to closely follow Marigia's, even paying huge sums of heavenly gold annually. However, after Roger's public execution 20 years prior, his words resonated throughout the world, causing the pirate ranks to expand rapidly, to the point that the Navy was showing signs of being suppressed. This was not a good sign, so the five leaders discussed the matter and decided to divide the pirate forces, turning some into a third power on the Grand Line. Thus, the seven warlords of the sea were born, and the three major powers formed a different kind of balance in the post-Roger era, continuing to solidify Marigia's rule over the world. In simpler terms, it was about nurturing pirates to maintain their own power. For 800 years, they've mastered this strategy. Okay, to be fair, since the birth of the seven warlords, the Grand Line, which was almost out of control, has indeed returned to balance, but that's not enough. After all, the influence of Roger's words still lingers, and the number of people setting sail to become pirates is increasing every year. If things continue like this, one day this delicate balance will be broken again by pirates. Perhaps this was Roger's original plan, a complete vicious cycle that can only be broken after Marigia's is overthrown. For the five elders, these pirates must be supported, but they must also be controlled. Otherwise, it's not about supporting pirates for self-improvement, but about raising pirates to cause trouble. Therefore, they are quite interested in Li Yan's plan. If successful, they can control the scale of the pirates, and then even abolishing the Seven Warlords system won't matter. After all, the Seven Warlords system is highly criticized, and even many within the Navy are resistant to it. It's not a good plan that can be implemented long term. If they had other options, they wouldn't want to create such a third force. While the five elders were having their secret meeting in the Hall of Power, in the East Blue, on Corona Island, at the 18th Branch Training Ground, Smoker, along with Warner and 5 others who had been training intensively for half a month in the gravity training room, once again stood before the power testing device. Already? Yes, Major General. Very good, let's begin. By the way, Senior Brother Smoker, Instructor Thor just told me that your requirement is different from the other 5, you need to reach 300 to pass. Is that alright? No problem. Upon hearing Li Yan's words, Smoker puffed out his chest and replied. He was no longer the same person he was half a month ago. For him, who could now adapt to 12 times gravity, 300 points of force was no problem at all. Oh. Quite confident. Let's start with you, Senior Brother. Okay. Nodding and slowly walking to the testing device, Smoker recalled the scene from half a month ago. 99 points of force. Because of that, he had been scolded by Old Master Thor countless times for the past half month. What a disgrace. However, this disgrace would end today. Using all his strength, he threw a punch forward. Boom. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.